Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. Marvel Magic Case Files. Chapter 61 Similar Women. Over the past 20 years, Enzo paid Bayonetta all gems instead of cash. It wasn't until recently that Bayonetta realized that her subconscious collection of gems was entirely due to the attraction of the left eye to the right eye. So far, how can a witch who pursues her own life experience endure the desire to find out the truth? Even though Salomon urged him in every possible way, the witch still thought it was his too gentle verbiage. Although Bayonetta enjoyed the feeling of being cared for, she had her own ideas. If Salomon hadn't mentioned the Supreme Mage, she even wanted to solve this matter by herself. After all, it was about her memory, and Bayonetta thought it was her own business. But now, more and more inferences are pointing to the recovery of Jubilus, the creator. No matter how powerful Bayonetta is, she cannot solve that thing alone. However, the witch still planned to go to Vigrid to investigate secretly first, trying not to attract the attention of others. She wanted to see if she could collect any clues about her life experience. The first step to get to Vigelit is by train. This train is a special train to Vigrid, and it is an express train developed by Yizaea Group. If you want to board this train, you must have a pass from Vigrid. Of course, Bayonetta didn't have these things, but she still boarded this train by entering the Purgatory world, that is to say, she evaded the fare. This train passed through the snowy peaks of the Alps, and most of the passengers on the train were Ragnar pilgrims who went to Vigrid for a pilgrimage. The decoration of the carriage is extremely luxurious, the floor is covered with a light green wool carpet, and the carpet has a pattern woven with dark green and white wool, the seat is a wooden armchair, and the thick blue cushion is embroidered with a golden sun symbol, even the luggage racks are made of brass. Bayonetta was sitting by the window, watching the orange-red afterglow dye the black rocks red, the white mountain tops reflected bright light, and the shadows below were gradually rising, devouring the last rays of light one by one. Exhausted. It seems that there is no one in this carriage, but in fact it is all because the witch is in the world of purgatory, and the projection of ordinary people in this world is just a layer of illusory and transparent phantom. She intends to go to Vigrid from purgatory. As long as she doesn't meet Baldur, who has the right eye, no one will be able to discover her existence. Well, maybe the average person will feel that something is passing by, but it's not a big deal. The long journey made Bayonetta drowsy, and she had a dream. In the dream, a husky male voice spoke to her, saying, "Wake up, my daughter." Bayonetta felt as if she was in an empty room. In front of her was a huge golden ring with golden ripples, and a black figure appeared in the golden ring. "Daddy." Bayonetta found herself saying the words involuntarily. "Yes, come here." The figure stretched out a hand, and the costume made Bayonetta feel very familiar. Then, a slight jolt of the train woke her up. The witch turned her head and looked out the window. At this time, the night had completely enveloped the earth, and the moonlight lit up the snowy peaks along the way, and the bright white light drove away the shadows again. Bayonetta had no memory of the scene in the dream. She lowered her head and thought for a while maybe this has something to do with her lost memory. As long as she finds clues, she will naturally recall it. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a motorcycle engine, and the sound was getting closer. The sound was transmitted into the witch's ears through the glass window, and she turned her attention to the window again. She saw a motorcycle driving on the steep black rock wall in a way that violated gravity, and there was a bright purple spell between the motorcycle and the rock wall. Even though it was affected by a motorcycle, it was still moving rapidly in an extremely smooth manner, and even maintained a relatively static speed compared to the train. And driving this motorcycle was a woman with short white hair in a tight red leather jacket. This woman had once appeared in Badger's office. While Bayonetta was looking out, the woman was also looking into the car. The witch pushed her glasses. This woman's spell was exactly the same as her usual one, which made Bayonetta intrigued. She felt that coming to Vigrid was a very correct choice. Joan twisted the accelerator, and the motorcycle accelerated again. Immediately afterwards, the motorcycle jumped up from the rock wall, turned over several times in the air, and then landed on the top of the train. She didn't hold down the brakes, but quickly rushed to the roof of the car where Bayonetta was, and took out two black pistols with white peacock feathers on the handles from behind, and shot rapidly at the target car. The purple magic power wrapped the bullets and splashed into the carriage like a torrential rain. Joan didn't care about the meaning of the Ragnar believers. She turned a deaf ear to the screams of the Ragnar believers. Her goal was only one, and that was Bayonetta. And the witch's reaction was also extremely quick. When she dodged a bullet passing by her side, the speed around her became extremely slow. This is witch time, a unique magic of the witch family, which can enhance the senses of the subject and enable them to move at super high speed. This kind of magic usually stays on the witches, and it will be triggered automatically when they avoid attacks. Of course, it can also be triggered actively in some cases, it depends on what the caster thinks. She put her hands on the seat, and the pistol on the high-heeled shoes fired instantly and shattered the glass. Bayonetta jumped out of the window, she turned a few times in the air, and then jumped onto the roof of the car steadily. Standing opposite Joan of Arc, she didn't intend to talk nonsense, but directly stretched her hands behind her back, raised her magenta pistol and pointed it at the strange enemy. "Excuse me, who are you?" "Het." The purple spell under the motorcycle lit up again, and the sound of the engine roared instantly. Bunita fired directly, but Joan dodged both bullets sideways. Joan rushed up on the motorcycle, she slammed on the brakes, causing the rear of the car to hit sideways, and Bayonetta jumped back to avoid it. Immediately afterwards, Joan of Arc drove the motorcycle to turn around again, and shot the witch horizontally with the body again, but the witch still dodged one after another. The witch suddenly jumped up and jumped towards the rock wall, her wide sleeves were like swallows spreading their wings in the wind. The purple spells lit up under Bunita's feet, which allowed her to stay on the rock wall smoothly. And her hair and clothes seemed to be attracted by gravity in another direction, without any sign of falling down. "You seem to have the same magical powers as I do," Bayonetta said. "I'll ask you again, who are you?" Joan also drove a motorcycle to stay on the vertical rock face. She chuckled, "It seems that long sleep has made your brain dull. Do I know you? You seem to know me." Bayonetta's muzzle kept pointing at Joan of Arc, and the full moon stayed behind her, covering her black leather jacket with bright white moonlight. "I probably know you better than you do yourself. You make me care more and more. If you beat me, I might tell you." Jean's way of speaking is almost exactly the same as Bunita's, and she also has the habit of raising her voice at the end of a sentence, like a hook trying to hook the other person's heart. Rise. She rushed to the top of the mountain on a motorcycle, and Bunita followed closely behind. As the witch jumped, the black sleeves slid forward with her like spread wings. Jean Dark abandons her motorcycle, and she jumps up to meet Bayonetta. Her fighting style is exactly the same as that of Bunita. The bullets of both sides collide with each other in the air, rubbing and sparking. No matter what the moves are, the movements of the two are almost identical, and the bullets fired by the two sides at extremely close range will also be flashed by the other side in the same way. The two jumped all the way and ran to a higher mountain top. Joan ran ahead, and then she turned suddenly and kicked Bayonetta with her high leg, and the pistol on the heel fired immediately. But such an attack was well within Bayonetta's expectations. The two fought each other several times before they separated, because even though Bunita lost her memory, her fighting instinct still existed, and she could find a way to deal with every attack of Joan of Arc. "It's been a long time since I've felt this feeling." Jean pointed her gun to the sides. "How about it, did you remember anything?" "Not really." Bayonetta pushed her glasses with a gun, and she said, "I have a feeling that I beat you once." "You can try it, you dull bastard." Joan raised her pistol and rushed forward again. Her slender and powerful thigh kicked Bayonetta back and forth, but it was a fake move. When Joan of Arc swung her pistol at the witch, she was blocked without accident. Then the two fell into a fight again, but no matter how they attacked, they couldn't attack each other, their fists and feet were always blocked, and the fast-moving bullets always passed each other, but Bunita's pistol elf night cracks began to spread after many violent impacts. But as she fought with Joan of Arc, her memory began to slowly recover from the familiar scene, as if she had once fought with the person in front of her. Bunita, who moved a beat slower because of the memory, was quickly caught by Joan. "Your strength is this level." Jean's tone was frivolous. She and Bunita were standing on the side of a huge stone pillar, but they did not continue to attack. "Who knows? If you do it a few more times, you might be able to find out." Bayonetta's tone was the same as usual, deeply covering up her desire for that memory. Joan replied with a chuckle, "With that kind of toy, what can you show?" "I will, because I think you haven't played enough." Bunita suddenly jumped towards Joan, and she fired again. But the round green gemstone inlaid on the elf knight was inlaid with the round pink gem. The gem suddenly shattered, and the magenta pistol emitted thick smoke and electric current. "That's stupid." Joan jumped aside and fell off the stone pillar. "You're not ready," she said. "Humph." Bunita watched Joan of Arc disappear before her eyes, and the magenta elf knight in her hand was completely destroyed. On this ancient ruins covered with huge stone pillars, only white snow and moonlight are left. End of this chapter. Chapter 62 Ceresa. The appearance of Joan of Arc brought great doubts to Bayonetta, because in Salomon's description, there is only one person left in the family of witches and sages, and the struggle continues for hundreds of years. But Joan fought her in the same way, which made the witch have to doubt the accuracy of Salomon's statement. But now Salomon went to Carmitage to investigate the lipstick that slept with her in the coffin. Presumably, when he comes back, he will bring more clues. At that time, Bunita wants to ask Salomon why there is a witch like her now. And now, she needs to go to Rodan for warranty work. There is a rift on the mountains about 105 kilometers away from Vigrid. The steep rocky mountains on both sides are almost vertical. It seems that it was formed after being smashed open with a heavy hammer and then edged over time. This place has been shrouded in dense fog all year round, and there is no vegetation on either the top or the mountain, not even the common moss and arrow bamboo bushes. Perhaps because the altitude is too high, the lead-colored clouds are not far away from here. The dark clouds rub against each other here, and the lightning often strikes this unobstructed rift vertically. On the closest mountains on both sides of the rift valley, there are two giant stone statues facing each other. These stone sculptures are similar in shape, all wearing general robes, with hoods, holding long swords in their hands, and spreading their wings behind them to build a platform. The statue on the left is lighter in color, closer to marble white, and has the sun's mark on the neck garment. It faces up to the left, with drooping eyes and a miserable face. The statue on the right is slightly darker, with a moon mark on its neck. It looked down to the right, expressionless, but there were still rust-colored marks on its cheeks, and a huge spiral spear pierced its chest deeply, and came out from behind, and those rust-colored marks seemed to be its tear stains. Are average. No need to get close to these two huge stone statues, even if you don't know their stories. As long as you see them from a distance, anyone can feel the pain they bury. In the middle of the night, the platform formed by the statue on the left spread its wings with a golden light, and a golden circular portal appeared on the platform. A little black-haired girl in a pink nightgown came out of the portal in a daze. She was holding a doll and wearing square-rimmed glasses, looking timid. Behind her is a figure in a white robe, with several peacock feathers spread out from behind this figure. Anyone who has seen the news can recognize his identity. Dad, so is Mummy here? The little girl raised her head and asked this figure. Lumen Sage Badr looked down at the little girl. If you are a good child, Mommy will pick you up right away. Sarasa is a good child. The little girl said cheerfully while hugging the doll. Then can you wait for Mummy here alone? Badr asked. Of course. The little girl nodded vigorously. Badr closed the portal with a smile, the golden disc shrunk, and finally disappeared, leaving Salisa alone on the not-too-wide platform. Just as the warm golden light disappeared, the little girl was startled by the roaring thunder in the distance, and the cold air was blown from the barren rift, stirring up the mist and churning endlessly. Sarasa's immature confidence collapsed in an instant, and she tightly hugged the rag doll she was mending in her arms. Cheshire, it's all right, isn't it? She asked nervously to the doll in her arms, with tears welling up in her bright grey eyes. Friend. But the doll will naturally not answer the question. The little girl stared blankly at the dark clouds in the distance, and whispered, Mummy, come and pick me up. Rodan's temporary store was opened in an abandoned longhouse in the countryside. As long as someone needs it, Rodan can open his bar to the nearest stronghold and wait for customers to come to his door. But because Bunita is too far away from this stronghold, it was already early morning when they arrived. Faced with Bayoneta's request, Rodan naturally agreed to repair the elf knight and promised to make it stronger. He also opened his arsenal for Bayonetta to choose from. After successfully solving the weapon problem, the witch rode a motorcycle she got from someone who didn't know where, and she didn't insert the key, but released the magic power with her fingers, and forcibly started the motorcycle. The witch's power is somewhat similar to that of Salomon, and both contain some causative characteristics, but at present, Salomon cannot do what Bayonetta does, using magic to forcibly control vehicles. In other words, Salomon has never tried this kind of thing at all. His only means of transportation are the portal and a small bicycle. The former is used for long-distance travel, and the latter is used for going out to buy snacks. At this time, it was not long before dawn, and the thin fog still permeated this rural town. The witch twisted the accelerator, and the engine roared deafeningly. Bunita drove this roaring beast along the road of the town to the green mountains in the distance, regardless of the quality of sleep of the residents. Not long after leaving the town, Bunita heard a burst of sobbing. A little girl's voice was calling for her mother, and Baldur's face wearing a half-mask flashed past the witch's eyes again. This is not the first time this has happened. On the train to Vigrid, Bunita also saw something in a trance. She has no idea what this situation means, but this flash of inspiration has some meaning to the spellcaster, especially the special existence of the witch. Perhaps there is a secret library backed by the entire library. What can a mage know? The witch intends to keep these facts in mind and ask Salomon when he comes back. Before Bunita finished thinking about the true intention of those inspirations, a golden portal suddenly opened on her only way, and she bumped into it before she even had time to change the route. Before she could see the situation on the other side, the witch jumped off the motorcycle to avoid possible attacks. But there was no sudden attack, no encounter, and there seemed to be no one here except Bunita. It seems that there is someone other than Rodan who wants me to take a long way. Bayonetta stood in front of the motorcycle that turned into a dilapidated mess after turning over a few times. She looked around, and here was a long stone platform that was not too wide, with undulating guardrails on both sides. The sky above her head was covered with dark clouds, and the air was very humid and cold. So, what is this place? It certainly won't be a party scene. Bayonetta looked around with great interest, and she felt that someone had put in so much effort to send her here. There must be a purpose. She was very much looking forward to the next performance, which happened to let her try a new weapon. Mommy! Mommy! The little girl's voice sounded again. It's just that this time it wasn't Bayoneta's auditory hallucination, but actually appeared near her. Following the sound, the witch walked up the slope and came to a wider platform. A little girl was kneeling on the ground, hugging the Cheshire Cat stuffed animal tightly, tears streaming down like pearls. After she heard the sound of high heels beating on the stone, she raised her head in doubt. With tears in her eyes, she saw a black figure walking slowly. Mommy! The little girl stood up sobbing. She kept shouting, holding the puppet, and stumbling towards Bayonetta with short legs that were almost frozen. This word had a somewhat impact on Bunita, and it was said from a very cute little girl. Even when she met an angel, the shock to the witch was not as great as this word. Shocked, the witch stopped in her tracks. But I probably made a mistake. This was Bunita's first thought, and the second thought that followed was, who threw this child here? But before the little girl ran to Bunita, a warm golden light fell between her and the witch, followed by falling white feathers. The little girl raised her head in doubt, and looked towards the light source. Monster! Can you see angels? Bunita was even more confused. She is not in the purgatory world now. Like this little girl, she is in the real plane, but this little girl can see through the real plane to the purgatory world, and even saw angels descending from the sky. This time, the level of enemies is not as high as that of the previous angels of power. Apart from a few affinity angels that can be seen everywhere, there is only one Ardor angel in the lower third rank of power angels. The angel of Ardor has extremely gorgeous red armor with golden lines all over the armor. Its head is exactly the same as that of the angel of affinity. It also has a beak, and the wings behind it are 3 huge golden feathers. In its right hand, it held a large knife made of many golden single-piece wings, and in its left hand was a retractable metal round shield. The edge of the round shield was golden and extremely sharp. If you just look at the shape, such an angel is very majestic and handsome. But it still scared the little girl to sit on the floor, and she cried in panic, which made Bayonetta a little unhappy. Although she likes to whip her enemies, likes to tease her opponents, and can summon all kinds of torture instruments and demons, she is a family woman who is full of motherly love and always has band-aids. Facing several friendly angels rushing forward recklessly, Bayonetta pulled out her new weapon from her hair, a samurai sword shining with purple magic power. Just like the ancient Japanese samurai movies, the samurai duel always ends in an instant. The two sides pass each other and stand facing each other, each holding their own weapons, waiting for the feeling of the thin blade cutting the flesh. Then one party feels the pain, lowers his head in surprise, and finds that he has already been injured and is on the verge of death. Bunita accelerated to a speed invisible to the naked eye in an instant. She rushed out and passed through the purple magic circle, behind the angel of affinity. When the witch stopped, there was still the sound of sharp blades piercing the wind in the air. Naturally, the witch's battle could not leave time for the enemy to notice the injury, and the head of the friendly angel immediately fell off, and then exploded into a golden light and disappeared on the spot. This sword is called the Shura sword, or the Emperor's sword, and it is Rodan's treasure. The performance of this knife really lived up to Rodan's expectations. The witch cut off the head of the friendly angel very easily, like cutting a cake. None of the next affinity angels survived the witch's blade long, but the Crimson Ardor angel allowed Bayonetta to slaughter the other angels, just standing in front of the little girl. Hearing the little girl's exclamation, the witch realized that a friendly angel grabbed the little girl by the collar and dragged her into the sky. Bayonetta jumped over the Ardor angel, leaped into the air and cut off the arm of the angel of sympathy, and embraced the falling little girl in her arms. Mommy! The little girl cried out in surprise, and as soon as she was hugged by Bayonetta, her crying stopped, as if the hard waiting before had never existed. Don't cry anymore, understand? The witch said a little impatiently, the two things I hate the most are crybabies and cockroaches. Also, I'm not your mommy. Okay, mommy. Upon hearing this, the little girl burst into tears again, but she still sniffed hard to stop her sobbing. You little one, just hide. Bunita nodded in satisfaction. She jumped to the side with the little girl in her arms, then took out a mobile phone from nowhere, dialed the number, and said to the little girl, there is still an angel here who wants to fight with me, I will find someone to take care of you. Okay, mommy. Hey. Before Salomon could react, Bayonetta said, find my current location, I know you will be able to find it, now, come to me quickly. The Supreme Mage stretched out his hand, and a portal appeared in the meditation room. Remember to bring snacks. The Supreme Mage said with a little smile, you will use it. End of this chapter. Chapter 63 Bringing Children. Hello, little guy. After Salomon walked through the portal with snacks in his arms, he saw a little girl in a pink nightgown with two braids peeking into the portal. Originally the trembling little short legs are now standing extremely firmly. Obviously, she was familiar with this thing and didn't show much surprise. In her little head, this warm glowing round thing that can walk out of it is very similar to the thing that was sent to her, only not as bright, but she still thinks it is the same thing. When Salomon walked out of the portal, the little guy sank visibly, because the person in front of her was not the one she expected. She lowered her head, pointing her round toe to the ground sullenly, even Salomon's greeting couldn't make her look up. I was called by that woman. Salomon pointed to Bayonetta who was confronting the angel in front of her. Look at that little guy. The witch shouted without looking back, as if she was very confident in Salomon's ability to take care of the child. Mummy. The little girl raised her head and said in a soft voice, Big brother, are you invited by Mummy to take care of me? Mommy, when did Bayonetta have a baby? Look at the appearance of this little girl, it is only in the past few years. Salomon was extremely embarrassed at this time, not only because he was attracted by Bunita's fighting power, but also because he had never taken care of children. He had never met this kind of little guy who was only as tall as his thigh. The children of the mage families who came to the Karmitage headquarters for training were at least as tall as Salomon. The mystic held a pile of snacks, and kept turning his free hand, trying to explain something. Mommy is leaving me again. The little girl looked at Bunita with tears in her big eyes, and then turned to Salomon. She looked up, tears streaming down her cheeks that still had baby fat. Come down, please, big brother, don't let Mommy leave me. It's not like that, little guy. Salomon's heart suddenly softened. Who can face such a little girl indifferently? He squatted down cooperatively, and said to the little guy, when your mother finishes dealing with that guy, she will come over to accompany you. I'm just here to protect you from harm. After identifying the level of the angel, Salomon knew that this enemy could not cause any hindrance to Bunita. Therefore, he was also very happy to tell the little girl in front of him this kind of thing in a relaxed tone, and he said, that monster will not be your mother's opponent. Then, we'll be fine, right? The little girl asked timidly. Of course, of course. Salomon nodded quickly. But, the Cheshire Cat. Cheshire Cat. Salomon followed the little girl's fingers and looked at the tattered puppet lying on the side. That shabby, that puppet belongs to you. Well. Cheshire is my friend, replied the little girl, but they want to hurt Cheshire. Okay, it's back. With a simple trick, the puppet flew into Salomon's hands. He stuffed a bag of potato chips, some candy, and the doll into the little girl's arms. Now, it's your friend again. Come with me, little one, you're going to get hurt here. It looks like you don't intend to hurt that little girl? What purpose did you call me here on purpose? Bunita asked the angel. At this time, Salomon discovered that there was a portal not far behind him. Salomon immediately judged that this was a trap specially prepared for Bayonetta, but what can a little girl do, hostage? But in any case, Salomon still raised his vigilance a little bit. Whether it was about this place or the little girl, he never turned his back on her again. At the same time, Salomon raised his ears, ready to hear what information the angel would reveal. I must become the cornerstone of the resurrected Lord God. The angel's tone was as calm as ever, it seemed that it could only say these meaningless words. Come on. Let's dance. The long knife in Bunita's hand burst into purple magic flames again, and the witch slammed at the angel and launched an attack. The witch's first few slashes were blocked by the ardor angel, and the swords clashed harshly, but Bunita still caught the angel's opening with extremely fast speed and strength, and chopped the long knife on the gold-red armor. But even this knife can't leave a scratch on this armor. And every attack of the witch can only splash a large spark. Bayonetta was not disappointed, but happy. The previous enemies were too weak to arouse her interest, and although the angel of power in front of her was lower than the angel of power, she was stronger than she imagined. The witch licked her lips and said, "It seems that I can enjoy it to the fullest." The bang of sword collision filled the entire Rift Valley, shaking the air, and the thunder nearby became more frequent. Played against each other several times. A large cloud of dust was suddenly stirred up on the battlefield. The rising dust blocked the sight of onlookers, and even Salomon, who was full of confidence in Bunita, couldn't help but worry at this moment, let alone the little girl standing next to him. "Mommy!" The little girl yelled worriedly. She hugged the puppet even harder and threw the snacks on the ground. Her tears overflowed again, much more than when she saw Salomon before. "Stand back, little guy." Salomon also dropped those burdens, and stood obliquely in front of the little girl, 2 orange rings lit up in his hands. "If you're unlucky, you'll have to run away," he said. After the dust cleared, the onlookers clearly saw that Bunita used the long knife to hold the Archangel's golden giant blade, blocking the attack intact, and the ground under her feet, but it cracked due to the huge force. Salomon breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't want the witch to stumble in such a place. The little girl stopped crying, but stared at Bayonetta intently, for fear that she would be hurt again. "Why do you want to confront me so much?" Bunita's voice seemed to be squeezed out from between her teeth. "You want to take my power or something?" The ground under the witch's feet shattered into pieces under the heavy pressure. "Smaller pieces." She said, "What a bad boy, it seems that you need severe punishment." "Good boy, don't listen." Salomon quickly pointed to Bayonetta, "These are not good words." "Hey!" The little girl looked at the mystic in a daze. Bayonetta jumped up suddenly, using the long knife as a fulcrum to support it, avoiding the angel's giant blade, and then her feet kicked on the angel's beak. The powerful force made the Archangel retreat with one step. The ground behind it was trampled to pieces. The witch's black leather coat put the long knife in. She stretched her hand behind her back and pulled out a giant black and red chainsaw. The handle of the chainsaw was shaped like a huge piranha. The power of this chainsaw is also one of Rodin's works. It is forged from the material of the hell dragon Salamandra, while the hard dragon scales are cast into sawtooth by Rodin, and the heart is made into an engine. Such a powerful force makes this weapon obtain unrivaled power. "Come on! Come on over here! Watch me make you feel so good!" Bayonetta said, "Come dance, baby." Salomon has already covered the little girl's ears. "The glory of Jubilus be with me." Facing the witch's provocation, Ardor, Ardor, shouted and rushed forward, but the witch jumped up to dodge its slash, and Bunita condescended to attack him. The chainsaw chopped on the top of the angel's head, and the tiny golden sawtooth spun rapidly, emitting brilliant sparks. The witch slashed down firmly and cruelly. The extremely sharp sawtooth cut through the armor and flesh of the Archangel, and cut the angel in half obliquely. The angel of death exploded into a ball of golden light, and the violent explosion that came at any time even blew off the end of the platform. Bunita stood in front of the broken part and slowly retracted her weapon. "Mommy! Mommy!" Seeing that the battle was over, the little girl kept shouting. "Hey!" Bayonetta covered her face, and she walked slowly to Salomon and the little girl. The little girl's expression also changed from crying to smiling immediately when the witch approached, which made the mystic have to sigh with emotion. The children's emotions change so quickly. "I think I did a good job," the mystic said, spreading his hands. "I didn't hurt her. Also, when did you have a daughter?" "This is not my child, but I'm interested in forming a family." The witch blinked at Salomon and then looked at the little girl. "Little guy, what's your name?" "Teresa," replied the little girl. "Have you forgotten, Mammy?" "Probably won't remember in the future." Bayonetta waved her hand. "Why are you in such a disgusting place? Even pumpkin carriages won't come to this place." "Dad told me that if I was a good kid, Mum would come back and pick me up," said Teresa. "He left you here?" Bayonetta asked in surprise. "Alone? Could this little girl be Baldra's trap? Whose child is that? Who is the father in its mouth?" Salomon unknowingly took a big step towards the truth, but he didn't interrupt, but waited for Salisa to reveal more unknown things. "I'm not alone, Cheshire is with me," Teresa retorted. "You were so scared that you cried, just like a baby." "Mom, let's go home." "How many times do you want me to say, little one, "I'm not your mother," said the witch, "your father will come to fetch you soon. As long as it's with my mother." Teresa hugged the puppet and stuck it to Bunita's lap, and it seemed that it might loosen for a while. "It's such a headache." Bunita sighed helplessly. It seemed that she had to take this little guy with her for a while. She looked at Salomon. "Can you cook?" "I find it difficult, but I have magic to solve this problem." Salomon asked, "What's wrong?" The witch rolled her eyes and said, "Hurry up and open the portal." "Where are you going?" Salomon didn't ask such stupid questions as why not use that golden portal. After all, no one would believe in the enemy's magic. "My house. You come with me too. I have to clean up this little guy first, and you are responsible for preparing the meals." The mystic put on the hanging ring and was about to cast a spell. "Okay, tell me the address. I think it's kind of like a family." "Ahem." Salomon coughed loudly, and the sparks that appeared out of thin air disappeared in an instant. The witch was very happy after seeing Salomon's reaction. "Hurry up," Bayonetta said, "I'm hungry, remember to fry a piece of salmon." End of this chapter. Chapter 64 Dinner and Doubt. Cherry tomatoes were cleaned and cut in half and placed in white porcelain bowls, and red peppers and shallots were also chopped and poured in. Then cut the Italian salami into strips and put them in the bowl. Add chickpeas and sliced Edam cheese, and finally put some chicory to add a little bit of bitterness. Oh, and shredded romaine lettuce. Then there is the sauce part. Mince the garlic, add a little Spanish sherry vinegar, Worcestershire sauce, white sugar and olive oil and stir well. Pour the sauce into the salad and mix well. A delicious pre-dinner salad is ready. Meanwhile, fresh salmon are being slaughtered and scaled by invisible servants, their spines removed and their bones removed. Fatty salmon, lightly salted and peppered, comes off the pan, skin side down, sizzling in a drizzle of sizzling melted butter with unpeeled garlic and a whole sprig of rosemary. The moment it is put into the pot, under the effect of high temperature and oil, the aroma of fish fills the whole kitchen. This is an extremely simple dish, which is very suitable for dinner. Salomon cut out 2 lemon wedges and put them in the disc. By the way, he also put the freshly cooked salmon into it. Of course, along with the salmon comes the expensive lobster. The cooked lobster Salomon chooses is slightly smaller but tender. Finely chop the peppers, add a pinch of salt and chopped garlic, and a handful of chopped parsley, mash and mix these ingredients, stir in the room temperature softened butter, and spread over the lobster halves, press firmly. After this, freeze the lobster with the freeze-ray spell, let the butter reharden, and place the lobster cut side down in a hot skillet. These delicious treats can make this dinner even more exciting. This was Salomon's first time cooking, and it felt a bit strange. Although he could remember the steps after reading the recipe, he was still a little flustered when things came to an end. Thanks to the one-ring spell Invisible Servant, these good helpers can do one thing, including cooking, just by giving an order. Therefore, for a mystic, cooking is similar to a magic experiment. He only needs to control variables and adjust parameters, such as the position of seasoning, the position of the plate, and the quality of ingredients, and he can harvest a perfect meal. Dinner. Bayonetta and Teresa stayed in the bathroom long enough for Salomon to prepare dinner. The mystic never imagined that although the witch hunts and kills angels all year round, the house where she lives most often is actually located in New York. But it is also because of this that Salomon can prepare the ingredients for tonight. He was busy in the kitchen while listening to the laughter in the bathroom, but even Salomon didn't realize that he was still smiling while cooking. Because this kind of feeling makes him feel very warm, there is a feeling of, like home. In Karmitage's cafeteria, everyone eats without saying a word, and no one knows which old guy made the rules, while in Athena's residence, everything looks like in a star restaurant. The dishes are exquisite, delicious but unfamiliar. Karmitage is the home of many people, but here, it seems to be his own home. Whether it is the position of the dishes or the arrangement of the seats, he has a very familiar feeling. He can naturally sit on the soft chair, turn on the lamp, and read a book that he has never read, as if he had done so long ago. The house, which has been uninhabited for a long time, also emits warm lights again with the re-arrival of the residents. After putting the dinner and cutlery on the table, Salomon shouted to the bathroom, "It's time for dinner." After a while, 2 people wearing glasses, one big and one small, came out wrapped in bath towels. They walked all the way towards the dining room, splashing bits and pieces of water on the wooden floor. "It's very fragrant, Boya. I didn't expect you to have such good cooking skills. I thought I could only eat spaghetti tonight," Bunita said with satisfaction, and Salisa, who was hugging her leg, also raised her head. sniffing the fragrance in the air vigorously. Salomon put on the hanging ring and chanted a spell. The warm wind wrapped Bunita and Salisa, and after a few seconds, their wet hair became dry. Hurry up and eat. The mystic took off the hanging ring and put it in his pocket. Don't catch a cold, I don't have many potions that I can brew now. Teresa sat between Bunita and Salomon, both of whom would help her with salads, shredded lobster and fish, and, of course, the obligatory ice cream. This dinner was extremely enjoyable. Salisa started to yawn after eating her belly full, and Bunita wanted to take her to sleep. But before the witch left, she motioned for Salomon to stay. She had something to talk about. And the mystic took advantage of this time to clean up the dishes. Is there anything strange about that? No matter how skilled you are, you still have to wash the dishes. When Bayonetta came back, Salomon was already sitting on the sofa in the living room, flipping through a fashion magazine boredly. What is this? A brass pocket watch. Salomon looked suspiciously at the thing in the witch's hand, but why does this pocket watch look so familiar? You removed your pocket watch? I don't know how to repair this thing. This pocket watch is exactly the same as my pocket watch, but it's not mine, it's that little guy's. Bunita sat beside Salomon, stretching her slender legs very naturally, putting her feet on the secret on the mage's leg. Although I hate to suspect that little guy, she may indeed be a trap to use against me. Have you checked Teresa in the shower? Is there something magical about her? Salomon asked. I think it's an inexplicable tattoo or something like that. Lied? Otherwise, what can a little girl do? I'm curious too, but I'm pretty sure that little guy isn't lying. The witch hooked the silver chain on Salomon's clothes with her toes, and said in a boring tone, she's almost asleep. The child will only close her eyes if I am by her side. Really, I am not her mother. You will check her body later to see if there is anything hidden. I am not good at this. Salomon, who was familiar with the witch, immediately recognized her subtext. What she meant was, I don't want anything in that little guy that could hurt her. Although I'm not her mother, I can't watch a child die. Facing Salomon's doubt, the witch just snorted without explaining. The result of the mystic's examination was the same as Bayonita's intuition. This little guy who was lying on the bed and snoring softly did not have any traces of any magic spells on his body. In Salomon's arcane vision, he was dressed in a new suit. Teresa in pajamas didn't have the slightest flash of magical aura on her body. But Salisa's ability to see through the purgatory world and see angels shows that she is not an ordinary person, but these mysteries can only be solved later. Now I don't have to worry about her suddenly exploding. Salomon lowered his voice and said to Bunita, who was standing aside, but I still have a question, what is the pocket watch on your body for? At this point, Salomon already had a guess, but he didn't say it, but continued to ask, is Salisa's pocket watch exactly the same as your pocket watch? Exactly the same. Bayonetta replied, frowning. Although there is no scratch, I think it is exactly the same. Why do you think so? Boya. This is a woman's intuition. Okay, just assume according to your intuition. Salomon nodded helplessly. He glanced at Teresa, and the premonition in his heart became stronger. Bayonetta continued, I suspect that Sarasa was sent by the Lumen Sage Bader, and the father that Sarasa said is very likely to be Bader. Why do you look surprised? The witch asked. This is also one of the possibilities, isn't it? Salomon showed helplessness before pulling Bunita into the living room. He struggled a few times, brewed for a while, took a deep breath before speaking, and explained the relationship between Badr and her clearly. Bayonita's reaction was not as big as Salomon imagined. She sat on the sofa and pondered for a long time before asking, did the Supreme Master tell you? Yes. The mystic nodded. The Venerable's actions were really dishonest, but Salomon could also understand why the Venerable did this, so he was ready to accept the witch's blame. But Bunita just gave him a disgusted look. Boya, don't be a cold-blooded person like your teacher in the future. Big sister is a weak woman, and she can't resist. It's hard, Bunita, but I'll try my best. Salomon sighed, and he said, let's focus on Salisa now, and Kamataj will make it up to you later. Ah yes, it will definitely satisfy you. Does Boya love big sister so much? The witch smiled and agreed to the mystic's plan, but this woman never spoke well, and would tease Salomon whenever she got the chance. Did you remember something? Salomon asked. No, it's still the same as before. The fire, the tower, the angel, and Baldur floating in the sky. But that guy is covered in feathers, and he looks similar to those monsters. Even if Sarasa was really sent by Baldur, it doesn't mean that Sarasa is really Baldur's child. Even if it is, what's the use of him sending his daughter to you? Could it be that his brain was eaten by an angel, and sent a little girl to influence the enemy? Even ancient Greek dramas are not so outrageous. The mystic couldn't help complaining. He said, "So, now Salisa may be your sister, what are you going to do?" "No matter what Baldur wants to do, my destination is Vigrid." The witch leaned lazily on the sofa. "As for that little guy, your cooking skills are good, I will leave it to you. Remember tomorrow take her to buy clothes, I will continue to explore Vigrid. The hints of the two stone sculptures today are too obvious, I will not let go of this opportunity." "Then don't you worry that it's another trap of Baldur," Salomon said worriedly. "What if you're going to Vigrid is also Baldur's plan? Anyway, someone will help, isn't there?" The witch blinked her left eye at Salomon. "I'll leave it to you." End of this chapter. Chapter 65 Magic Pet Summoning. In fact, when Salisa appeared in front of Bunita, the witch recalled something. It was a softly hummed melody, and Bayonetta felt that the melody was very familiar, but she couldn't recall more things when she thought about it carefully. It's just that she couldn't be sure whether the pictures that appeared in her mind were real or were Baldur's magic, just like the vision before seeing Salisa, so the witch never told Salomon about those things. But the witch still told Salomon that she had met the woman with short white hair in red dress. The point is that that woman has exactly the same ability and fighting style as hers. In this regard, Bayonetta doubts the accuracy of some of the information provided by Salomon. "You mean, a witch?" Salomon asked. "Since the current Lumen Sage is the one from 500 years ago, your father, it is not so unexpected that a witch who has lived 500 years appears. This only it can be explained by the lack of information. After all, Kamatage did not observe the battle all the way. Maybe even the Venerable doesn't know where you are buried. Luca's father may have released you by mistake. Because if those angels know your location, they will definitely rush over to get back the left eye as soon as possible." "But the so-called left eye?" Salomon shook the pocket watch in his hand, which belonged to Salisa. "I don't think it has much to do with your pocket watch." His curiosity made him examine Salisa's pocket watch carefully, but it did not have the power of the left eye as the witch said. It was just a very ordinary pocket watch, but the words on it were inlaid in the center of the pocket watch. "Ruby is a bit unusual. But that is at best a magic gem that protects the pocket watch from damage and supports its operation, nothing too unusual." Salomon spent the night on Bayonetta's sofa, and Bayonetta needed to cuddle the little one. Because Salisa woke up after turning over. She became a crybaby again after she found out that Bunita was not around. If the witch didn't embrace her again, she might cry all day. And Salisa also slowed down Bunita's exploration of the small town of Vigrid accordingly, because she could hardly bear the time without seeing Bunita. Even when Salomon took her shopping, the clingy little guy would ask the mystic from time to time how Bunita was doing, whether she was hungry, whether she was cold, and when she would be home. Faced with Saris's foolish words, Salomon could only use his whole life to coax her, and he still held on to Saris's hand tightly, lest she run out to find Bunita. Let's put it this way, Salomon has lived the life of a dad that he has never experienced before. The magic in his hands is no longer the terrible necromancer or the evocation spell that brings destruction, but the fancy illusion. He even complied with Salisa's request and used illusion to decorate the sofa as a rabbit hole. Perhaps it was because the witch had a premonition of the trouble this little guy might bring, so she easily threw Sarisa to Salomon to deal with. Although Teresa is very cute, Salomon doesn't want to take care of children anymore, he still has his own magic to learn, and he can't watch the little girl all the time. Immediately afterwards, he came up with a good solution, to find a magic pet to solve the problem. Demon Pet, the big baby of the spellcaster, the real-life partner. Even if you are married, you may get divorced, but the magic pet will not, it will accompany the caster wholeheartedly until the end of life. The premise is not to find the magic pet of the lower plane, the evil nature will make them unconsciously brew plots capable of killing the master, sometimes they succeed and sometimes they don't. It would be fine if he was alone, but he wouldn't feel at ease keeping such a pet by Saris's side with such a creature. Not to mention the celestial creatures, I am afraid that Bunita will trample the familiar to death as soon as she returns home, so the Fey familiar has become the only choice. The great magic of finding a magic pet was cast for the first time in this world. And it was actually for raising children. I don't know if the conjurer who invented this magic would feel sad. Salisa stared with curious eyes, watching Salomon put the brass basin on the floor of the living room, and found oak branches, fine charcoal and various spices into the basin, and finally he lit the fire. Thick smoke was gurgling from the brass basin, making Salisa cough again and again, but she still did not forget to hold the puppet in front of her chest. "Sweetie, I think you should back off a bit. Salomon carried Salisa out of the living room, and he said, do you like cats or mice or frogs? Cheshire. Okay, so that's the cat. I don't think I can find a cat that can laugh, though. This ceremony took Salomon an hour. He needed to constantly recite spells to locate the familiar he needed. He even worried that there would be no fey plane in this world. But fortunately, not long after, a fuzzy ball of green light appeared in front of him. Following Salomon's spell, it slowly formed a complete shape. Finally, the green light receded, and a chubby tabby cat appeared in front of him. In front of Salomon and Sarasa, who sneaked over. Meow. Cheshire. Teresa yelled. This chubby cat has short grey fur and blue-green fluorescent markings, which is very similar to the Cheshire cat in the story, which is also a little characteristic of fey creatures. Except for howling the first time it appeared, the cat didn't bark anymore. It raised its head and stared at Salomon with two big round eyes. The contract brought by the ritual magic had already made the cat cry. It knows that Salomon is its master. First order. Salomon said, your name is Cheshire. Meow. It seems that you like this name. Salomon pointed to Sarasa, who was standing aside with bright eyes, and said, take care of her until the witch returns. Forbid Salisa to touch all dangerous objects, such as sockets, gas. Wait, the snacks are in the drawer, don't let Salisa eat too much. There is no litter box here, you have to go to the toilet, if you can excrete, remember to flush. Meow. Before Salomon finished speaking, the chubby cat walked over on its own, and rubbed Salisa's calf, causing the little guy to scream in surprise. I hope that the magic pet of this chaotic camp can carry out the order well. The mystic looked at Teresa, who ran out of the living room after her pet, put the hanging ring on her left hand, and cast the spell engraved on the hanging ring. He is going to take a look at Vigrid next to make sure that the witch will not fall into Baldur's trap, because the power involved in this whole thing is beyond the current Salomon's power, but his ultimate goal is to kill Badr. At present, the only one who has the ability to kill Badr is the witch, and the best way to kill him is to use the lipstick of Bunita's mother Rosa. In other words, Salomon wants to ensure that Bunita is not hindered on the road to patricide. Of course, Salomon will not feel any guilt because of this, and even said that he did not feel that he had done anything wrong in the slightest when he pushed Bunita to commit such a crime. Because if Baldur's plan is successful, mankind will be finished, and the Supreme Mage will have to use the Eye of Agamotto to go back in time. Even if you use the Eye of Agamotto, it's nothing more than doing it all over again. To pursue a secret 500 years ago, you must go to a building with a history of at least 500 years. The good news is that there are extremely ancient buildings preserved in the small town of Vigrid, and there are also some extremely modern buildings in the building. The bad news is that there are many such buildings. By the time Bayonetta reached Vigrid from Sunrise and Crescent Canyon, the sky had grown dark. And in this ancient town, she met Joan of Arc again, the woman with short white hair in a red dress. Joan of Arc was riding a motorcycle, surrounded by a large group of friendly angels, fell from the sky, and fell in front of Bayonetta. Although they belonged to the same camp, and the angels brought her here, Joan of Arc didn't show any mercy to the angels. She used the wheel as a weapon and ran over the body of the friendly angel. When he moved, flesh and blood flew under the motorcycle. Bayonetta also put away her attacking stance temporarily. The person in front of him is undoubtedly a witch, but Salomon has not found her origin. The mystery of this woman is even more puzzling than that of Bayonetta. Sure enough, when Joan passed by on a motorcycle, this woman still mercilessly crushed all the angels present. Joan's motorcycle was rampaging on the wall, and she stopped condescendingly only after there was no living thing here except her Bunita, but she stayed on the wall. Sure enough, you are here. Joan said, you are looking for the secret of the past, aren't you? Your face is very familiar, and you use the same ability as mine. Bunita embraced her arms. The previous battle with Joan of Arc had flashed back some scenes for her, but she was still not sure how the complete incident happened. She asked, excuse me, do we know each other? Joan snorted a few times, and put her long legs on the front of the car. The same ability? Don't be kidding. You have been running in the lake for too long, are you rusted? I haven't touched water in 20 years since I woke up. Bayonetta took a few steps, hands on her waist. For some reason, she seemed to get angry when she saw this woman in front of her. Bayonetta said in an extremely disdainful tone, the only rust on my body is because I haven't met a real challenge yet. Maybe you are that challenge. You really disappoint me. Jean took out a brass pocket watch from her bosom, and it was only then that Bunita realized that the pocket watch ornaments on her chest had disappeared. Joan of Arc stole it the moment she passed Beyonta, and the method used was also the witch time commonly used by witches, but obviously, Beyonta's speed was not as fast as Joan's. Tisk! Bunita jumped up and grabbed the pocket watch in Joan's hand. But Joan threw her pocket watch up and looked at Bayonetta jumping up. She said, "It's not that simple, my dear." End of this chapter. Chapter 66. Bayonetta jumped up, narrowly avoiding Joan's upturned rear wheel, and Joan twisted the accelerator and rode along the old brick wall. The witch jumped on the motorcycle and shot at Joan with a newly repaired pistol, Scarborough Fair, but Joan dodged each of them. She jumped back suddenly, towards the fallen pocket watch. Joan defied gravity and stood up from the motorcycle. Completely parallel to the ground. With one foot on the accelerator, she jumped up on the front of the car, one step ahead of Bunita, and grabbed the pocket watch, and then she fell again, just sitting on the motorcycle that had just landed. All the movements are so easy and freehand, as if she has calculated all the variables in all the battles, including the landing point of the motorcycle. At this time, Bayonetta had just landed on the ground. Joan turned the car around and stopped opposite Bunita. She held a pocket watch in her hand and showed it to Bunita. Joan of Arc said, "I have been waiting for this moment for a long time. But you have forgotten your destiny and wasted 20 years. She threw the pocket watch at Bunita, and the witch caught the stolen treasure. Bunita looked at the pocket watch in her hand, and she said, "Indeed, I don't remember much about the lake. Could you please explain in detail?" Joan opened the silver pocket watch on her neckline, which was a small mirror. She reapplied her lipstick in front of the mirror. 2 observers, the eyes of the world, the power to hold the world. Bunita had already heard these contents, but there were still some things that caught her attention, for example, the eyes of Joan of Arc as if she saw the eyes of someone she knew well. That look made Bayonetta feel very familiar, and the person in front of her brought her more memories than she imagined. For a moment, she seemed to be back behind a black iron fence, and she looked at the vast palace in front of the fence. There's a ceremony going on there, like a tribal heir ceremony. Joan of Arc, as the heir of the tribe, it's time for you to prove whether you are worthy of the title of witch. In front of the woman in black robe stood a girl in red dress. The old voice said to the girl, "You can choose your opponent, anyone." Suddenly, a throwing knife plunged into the wall beside Bunita, and the girl in red turned around. She has white hair, a musket pinned to her feet, and her flamboyant crimson dress and cloak embroidered with gold thread are very different from the dull black around her. She rolled her long hair into 2 buns tightly around her ears, and wrapped it with a thin golden chain decorated with gorse. A chain spanned her forehead. In the center of the chain, there were 3 fringe of lilies is adorned like a crown. Her neck is also wrapped in black close-fitting fabric, reflecting the 3 lily-shaped pendants hanging from the bun. She said loudly, "Then let me fight that taboo." This person. Bayonetta felt that this person looked more and more familiar. The girl didn't seem to care about the objections of the person in charge. She didn't care about the impure bloodlines and the blasphemy of challenging her. "This is not the first time we have fought." She didn't even pay attention to the astonishment of the person in charge, and challenged Bayonetta. "How about dueling me in this hallowed place?" she said. "Isn't that what you've been expecting? If there is no choice, then of course there is no problem. But I need you to give something in return." Bunita found herself speaking unconsciously, and the clothes she was wearing were also extremely retro. "You know, I love stuffed animals." Bunita only remembered that she had experienced an extremely difficult battle, and when she came back to her senses, she found that the person standing in front of her had disappeared, and she returned to reality. Bayonetta still remembers the joy she felt when she accepted the challenge. It seemed that this woman might be her friend, and she had a very good relationship with her, but she couldn't think of anything more for the time being. She only remembered one name, Joan of Arc. This should be her name. There are not only angels in this small town, but also some crows. These ancient streets and buildings are almost uninhabited. Those birds can stay on the road generously without worrying about someone breaking in. There is a desolate atmosphere here, but there are no weeds. Although the masonry road is a bit uneven, it is very clean, as if it is often cleaned by someone. It was not until Bunita opened a closed stone door that she returned to Vigrid's square, and the noisy life came back, and at this moment, she seemed to have returned to the world. Usually, those stone gates are closed, and people living in Vigrid can't find out at all. Almost everyone here is excluded from the secrets of the past, only Bunita who has extraordinary abilities. Only those with magic power can open that door and get a glimpse of the past history. But Bunita feels that her biggest gain is that memory. That not only reminded her of the names of her past companions, but also those halls. Then, her goal is to find those halls and dig out all the secrets. There must be what she needs there. A man in the robes of the Ragnar Order and a white hood ran panting down the stone brick street, bumping around and knocking over many pedestrians. And the reason why he was so exhausted was that behind him, there was an extremely strong Vigrid law enforcement officer with a baton. He ran into an alley and missed the law enforcement officers, but he was spotted by a young woman. He stopped suddenly, took a few steps back, and returned to the woman. He straightened the non-existent skirts in a serious manner, lifted the hood, and threw the long red and blue scarf behind him. Do you believe in fate? He took a step forward and stretched out a hand to the young woman, then he took another step back and tripped the rushing law enforcement officers. Fate connects us together, no one can separate us. He backed up while talking, knocked over the long table behind the flower shop door, and fell hard to the ground. Immediately afterwards, he disappeared, much to the astonishment of the young female Ragnarian. She ran over with the law enforcement officer who got up, but didn't find any trace behind the long table. That person seemed to disappear out of thin air. I believe it, said Salomon, I believe it. Luca, it's your turn. Shit. That's my good chance. Luca smashed his fist to the ground angrily. The two of them were still standing behind the long table, but the two people in front of the long table couldn't seem to see them, and couldn't even touch them. Luca's actions didn't attract the attention of others at all. Luca quickly adjusted his expression, stood up, and patted the dust. He asked, is this the purgatory world? No, this is the mirror dimension. Salomon said, this is an extra dimension, which is different from the purgatory world. It has a different nature. It cannot interfere with the outside world here. However, the mirror dimension and the purgatory world still have something in common, that is those who stay here cannot leave without using certain magic. You should thank me for saving you. What are you doing here? Luca asked. I just let a child find a new toy to divert her attention. Then I came. Salomon had a bored expression on his face. It's too easy to find you. I'm afraid Viglidrid there is no guy who can make trouble like you. Since someone said that 2 updates are required, let's restore the 2 updates. However, the number of words in the first update and the second update is the same, 1 4000 plus and 2 2000 plus are the same, but since you think the latter is more, then choose the latter. Anyway, there are more chestnuts, isn't it? End of this chapter. Chapter 67 The Conspiracy of the Isabel Building. The reason why Luca was hunted down was very simple, because not long ago, he dressed up as a Ragnar cultist and tried to sneak into the headquarters of the Ragnar cult Isabel Building. The plan failed, of course, not just because of the highly recognizable scarf, but more because the guy couldn't wait to shoot everywhere as soon as he stepped into the building, even including the guards at the gate of the building. By the way, the guard's photo was retaken, which is also the most important reason why he was discovered. But maybe it was because the Ragnarians never thought that the Isabel mansion would be invaded, because the people who came to Vigrid either had a pass or were Ragnarians. After a long time, Luca was finally found by the guards, but he had already taken a memory card full of photos. But fortunately, even if this guy slipped to the door, the guard thought he just came in. Yes, Luca bought the camera again, on loan. Now he has to repay not only the car loan, but also the camera and lens loan. Are you French? I can barely recognize your accent, but your manner and the way you wear a tie while wearing a scarf make me doubt your nationality. Do the French like Louis XIV so much? Would you rather strangle yourself and wear a tie? Salomon said, you want to fall in love with a young girl while fleeing for your life, you are as stupid as Voltaire's Pangloss. This accusation is too much. I have seen The Innocents, but it does not mean that I believe in Leibniz's optimism. Moreover, wearing a tie is an attitude to life and a privilege of adults. Obviously, you still not at this age. Luca retorted, what's more, you don't feel very comfortable meeting young and beautiful girls in such an exciting environment and finding joy in this cruel world full of messy monsters. Is it romantic? Where is your nationality? UK. Ah. I have no intention of arguing with you about these metaphysical things, slaves of consumerism, you just work hard to repay the loan. I don't think I need to work, even if I am an adult. Salomon pouted, he said now, I can't get in touch with Bayonetta, but I know she's here, so I'm here to find her. Hurry up, let me see the information you collected, those that can satisfy your dirty and nasty voyeurism-esque things. Why are you being so mean to me, Salomon, are all wizards like this? I suspect you're still at Hogwarts, and your dean is Professor Severus Snape. Tisk, damn it, the pure blood, damn capitalist. By the way, I like Gryffindor. Luca muttered and put the camera in front of the mystic. Remember your promise. Shut up, I didn't ask you what you like, you stupid lion. Of course I will keep my promise, provided you do too. Salomon looked at the photos in the memory card under Luca's guidance. After a while, he saw something extremely frightening. Pointing to the photo, he said to Luca, "Ha! I really didn't expect you to go deep into this kind of place. It seems that I found the right person. Of course, I'm a reporter." Luca suddenly became complacent. "You're welcome to boast more." But Salomon ignored him and continued to examine the photos. That extremely frightening thing looked very ordinary. It was a bright red coffin erected on a huge pillar, which seemed to be full of metal texture. A metal spike pierced out from the chest of this human-shaped coffin. A pipe connected to the coffin was carrying a crimson liquid. There are many such things, but Luca didn't have the opportunity to investigate them in depth. He didn't realize what it was when he took this photo, but Salomon only relied on his extraordinary eyesight to distinguish a few small runes and then recognized it at a glance. Although this thing is wrapped in something with a strong sense of technology, the core operating principle is magic, and the crimson liquid is nothing but blood. I'm afraid this is the remains of those dead witches. After those witches died, a huge amount of their magic power still remained in their souls. The function of these coffins was to imprison the souls, and then extract the magic power from them to supply the Isabel building to run or something else. The device may have been in operation for hundreds of years, and something that required such a huge amount of magic must not be simple. Salomon frowned tightly. He was constantly thinking, what exactly is Baldur offering? How would he use Salisa to achieve his goals? Could it be magic similar to hinting? But that little guy can't even hold a knife tightly, how could he hurt someone? The doubts about the Isabel building made Salomon quite worried. He asked Luca in detail where each of the photos was taken. Ordered. Although Salomon didn't like Luca's freestyle, this guy was indeed very talented as a reporter, and his investigation also saved a lot of trouble for Salomon's actions. But he had to find Bunita first and show her a clear route. In the barter room on the top floor of the Isabel building, in the strange space inlaid with warm light on the ceiling, the angel who was originally as tall as a person was as small as an ant flapping its wings, the one wrapped in energy. The blurry figure became increasingly clear. A huge, metallic female face has become clear, including the towering golden bun and the dense, creepy white face decoration on it. The two eyes that govern the world are about to come together. The resurrection of Jubilus is just around the corner. The angels are fantasizing as usual. You are the sacrifices for the resurrection of the left eye. Our wishes are the same, and everything is for fulfillment, our long-cherished wish. Yes, light, darkness, human beings, all for the creation of a new world. The lumen sage Bader stood under this warm light. As his voice became louder, countless angels flew towards the real world from that strange space, and the light around Bader also gradually changed from orange-red warm light to white glare, and as they approached, the light around him became more and more dazzling. Ha ha ha! Bader raised his hands high. He shouted, "Go, angels, go sacrifice yourself, go and become the cornerstone of awakening the left eye, the glory of Jubilus will always be with you. Go ahead, let my dear daughter know how strong she is, let my sweetheart know what mission she has. Don't hold back, don't worry that she will fail, only through this game, my daughter will understand her with real power, she will understand the meaning of her existence. I love you so much, my daughter." Different from the previous high-pitched speeches, Badra's last words were extremely weak, and only he could hear him. At the same time, he also lowered his head, half of a golden mask covering his expression. "Become the god of the new world with me, Teresa." End of this chapter. Chapter 68 The Angel of Fortitude. Now, Salomon didn't know where to find Bayonetta, but he still had a way. The witch Bunita came to Vigrid definitely not to coexist peacefully with Baldur, the sage of Lumen, and this is the hinterland of the Ragnar order. There are many creatures on the upper plane, and the witch must be in the realm of purgatory. Uncertainty is carrying out the mission of hunting angels. But the inanimate objects in the purgatory world and the real world can also interfere with each other. He has never been an ordinary person who does not run away after abnormalities appear around him. It is a biological instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. Therefore, Salomon only needs to see where there is the most movement and where there are pedestrians running away in panic, so that he can know the location of Bayonetta. The lipstick was still in his dimensional bag, and he had to hand it over to the witch. Only in this way could he achieve the future the Venerable saw. After he took Luca out of the mirror dimension, he gave Luca a task. That is, if you see something unusual, call him as soon as possible. There are a lot of ancient buildings preserved in the old city of Vigrid, and the area is very extensive, so he needs to split up with Luca to find the witch as quickly as possible. The worst thing is to find traces of the witch's destruction. For this kind of business, Luca is very good at it. Apart from following Bayonetta, his main occupation is a freelance reporter, that is, a paparazzi, and his biggest source of income is to sell celebrity privacy to entertainment magazines for remuneration. If he hadn't developed such skills, he would also. It is impossible to keep up with the witch's footsteps. Oh, the truth. After Salomon rolled his eyes at Luca, he walked away from him. Salomon also knew that his clothes were very conspicuous in Vigrid, which was full of Ragnarians, so the mystic did not walk on the street openly, and in order to receive Luca's call in time, he nor can you enter the purgatory world or the mirror dimension to avoid eyesight. He can only jump on the roofs of those old masonry buildings and climb along the rough walls. Of course, it cannot be denied that Salomon suffered from a little bit of a stroke. After all, he has put on the hood of his cassock now. Rodan should know how to make a hidden blade, right? The height difference between these buildings is not large, and it does not bring many obstacles to Salomon's climbing. He walked around the buildings near the central fountain a few times, carefully checked the alleys that no one usually passed by, and eavesdropped on the conversations of the Ragnarians, hoping to hear if they were talking about some strange things. But not only did he not find any trace of the witch, nor did he receive a call from Luca. Seeing that noon was approaching, Salomon had to go back to Bunetta's house, make lunch for the crying Salisa, and promised that he would take Bunetta home. It's just that it doesn't work very well. Teresa still thinks that it's because she is a crybaby that her mother hasn't come back until now. Salomon took a deep breath. What can he do? He didn't refuse when he took over Salisa, but now he can only face it with a smile. After he managed to coax the little guy, he immediately returned to Vigrid and appeared on the roof he left. Immediately afterwards, he stepped on the roof and searched in one direction for a while. At this time, Salomon was already approaching the outskirts of the city, but he still didn't find anything. Just when he was quite distressed and his toes were hurting, a loud noise caught his attention. When he looked back, he found another direction, an explosion in a small church not far from the fountain in the center of the old city. Huge stones soared into the sky and smashed to the ground. Even the raised dust could not prevent the dazzling golden light from penetrating the shadows. It was a light invisible to ordinary people, but Salomon could see it clearly. With his excellent eyesight, he even saw a huge thing with two heads, and even flew up to the clouds with a fairly complete chapel. Bayonetta is there, except for her. No one else could have caused such a big incident with the angel. Salomon hurriedly ran in that direction. Along the way, the street under his feet was full of panicked and exhausted Ragnar followers. When he arrived, he saw huge stones smashed into pieces. The original beautiful fountain, and gravel of different sizes continue to fall from the sky. The mystic cast a spell and walked into the purgatory realm. Here, he saw flames blooming again in the distant sky. The originally intact chapel suddenly shattered, and a large cloud of dust filled the air. Under the influence of flying to another direction. The originally small stone quickly approached and enlarged, and finally hit the ground fiercely. Following the gravel fell to the ground, there was a black figure. The huge monster with two dragon heads also flapped its wings and passed through. Dust swooped down from the air. That's Bayonetta. Salomon ran over quickly, but before he could take a few steps, the double-headed angel disappeared, and then the whole Vigrid suddenly shook, and Bayonetta's position suddenly rose into the sky. Thick smoke and orange-red flames. Salomon sped up his speed, and when he arrived here, he saw that the rubble fell on a small square, and orange-red hot magma erupted from the stone brick floor from time to time, and the magma cooled down after splashing, like red and black scars cling to the originally beautiful building. Here, benches, flower pots and other things that can burn are ignited. The flames climbed along with the clothes and furniture left by the residents, and got into the house, while thick black smoke came out, poisonous. The gas filled the entire square with the burning smell of various things, and spread along with the hot air expanding outward. He covered his mouth and nose, walked around here, and continued to search for the person he wanted to find in the sea of flames. But Vigrid's vibrations became more frequent, and the gushing magma became more violent. Salomon felt the building under his feet shaking, and suddenly, the masonry ground suddenly collapsed, and the bell tower in the distance was surrounded by a fountain of magma and flew into the air, followed by trams and the like. The magma flows between the streets and alleys like a raging river. And the banks of the river are those houses. It seems that this place is not the city of angels, but hell. Even Salomon, who was on the roof, felt the scorching heat of the air. He walked and watched all the way, and could find traces of fighting from time to time. Salomon followed along these traces. At the end of the traces, a huge magma pit appeared in front of Salomon. This pothole has traces of artificial construction. The bridge across the magma lake alone cannot be formed naturally. This seems to remind him that he has an amazing secret and arouses the curiosity of explorers. Fortunately, the painstaking efforts of the builders were not in vain, and there happened to be an explorer here. Salomon took a deep breath of the clean air, found the right place and jumped down. After he landed slowly, feather fall technique, he saw that the stone bridge had broken into 3 pieces, and a black figure had just stepped into the cave opposite the magma lake. The mystic mage quickly cast a spell, opened the portal and entered the cave. The air here is much cleaner than that in the magma lake, and there is also a much cooler breeze blowing from the depths of the cave. He could finally breathe freely. The light and heat of the magma lake just now almost made him unable to open his eyes. When he arrived here, he was already covered in sweat, and the sticky feeling made him itchy all over. Salomon walked forward along the long cave while avoiding small falling rocks. After a while, he saw the sun. It was a shaft, and his shadow was cast in the well mouth of the clear sun. The blue sky, it has never become turbid because of the turmoil here, as if there is a place outside the wellhead that is indifferent to the world. Suppressing his nausea, Salomon held a bit of asphalt in his palm and swallowed the spider that had been kept in the small glass bottle. After chanting the spell, the asphalt disappeared. Salomon stuck out his tongue, feeling that the spider was still bouncing in his stomach. He spat a few times, trying to get rid of that strange feeling. "It's just disgusting," he muttered as he walked up the side of the well. "I should have chosen levitation, I was careless. Fortunately, the spider walk can last for an hour, which is a rare consolation. At least Salomon doesn't need to recast the spider walk every once in a while technique, then you need to swallow a spider." After walking out of the wellhead, Salomon immediately felt the clear breeze, which took away all the heat, and there was no bubbling magma and various odors here, and the clean air returned to him again. In the lungs. He came to a steep cliff. Here, he could see the old town of Vigrid in the valley below, but it had already fallen into a sea of flames, and the magma flowed down from the valley like a waterfall, gathering and piling up on the together. F***ck. Salomon couldn't handle this kind of thing. He could only spit, and continued to walk up a dilapidated stone step crushed by a pillar. Overgrown with weeds, it reached a dilapidated ring arena. The huge double-headed angel appeared above the arena, while Bunita stood in the arena. Salomon only recognized the identity of the angel after approaching. This angel has 2 huge dragon heads, one red and one blue. The dragon heads are inlaid with gems and armor. The body is a huge inverted marble human face. Sun sign, its 2 huge claws are identical to those of a dragon. With golden ornaments on the knees and claw tips, and a long tail with many barbed penances tightly inserted into the body, ending in a there is a golden, outstretched wing decoration, and the broad wings carry it to stay in the sky. This is the angel of fortitude among the 4 virtues, the embodiment of the divine will of the kingdom of God, the embodiment of courage and fortitude, and also represents the element of fire, with the ability to summon magma. It can be said that all the magma in the old city of Vigrid was summoned from the ground by it. I heard that there is a person who escaped from the witch hunt and is rebelling against our rule. The mouth of the huge inverted human face opened and closed, and the thick voice resounded throughout the arena. Her connection with the lower plane makes her the soul becomes filthy. "If you are this poor man, I will release you from your torment." The witch ate candies boredly, not paying attention to the angel's words. "Holy Son, man of wisdom." The angel of fortitude interrupted the conversation with the witch. It said, "Please perform a miracle and save the poor man in front of you." Suddenly there was a gunshot and a bullet bounced off the marble face. The angel of fortitude also stopped what he was going to say in surprise, because he didn't understand at all why someone would voluntarily refuse this gift. The witch blinked at Salomon, and she said to the angel of perseverance, "Sorry, I forgot to tell the reason for hunting you. You are so ugly, I can't bear to let you continue to suffer." "Holy Son." The perseverance angel wanted to continue speaking, but was interrupted by Salomon's raised middle finger. "Are you going to rebel against the heavens too?" The angel of perseverance asked in surprise. "I have never obeyed the upper plane, let alone you, a bouncing puppy." Salomon said, "It is better for the creatures on the upper plane to leave the main material plane obediently. Here is the supreme the mage's place. Humans can't fight us." Even if you add the witch beside you, don't try to use the power of darkness to fight us. No matter what era, the witch will never learn the lesson. Said the angel of perseverance, we will reshape a new world. And you, also one of us, you can obtain a status far higher than that of a sage. Shut up! Feather face. Bunita fired a few shots impatiently, and she drew out her long knife. You are so stupid that it is unbearable. End of this chapter. Chapter 69 The Earl of Malphas. A small area of the arena was pushed into the air by the gushing magma, emitting black smoke. The witch turned away from the rebel with ease, with astonishing speed, and in an instant she had grabbed Salomon and leaped onto the ring wall of the arena. The mystic also knew that he might not be able to help in this battle. The power of the angel fortitude was beyond his reach, so he also felt that he was a burden. However, Salomon still did something within his power. He took out the lipstick and handed it to Bayonetta. By the way, he tore a scroll and applied the magic on the scroll to the witch. You are so sweet. The witch blew a kiss to Salomon after feeling the magic force field on her body, and pushed him off the wall, letting him leave here. This height cannot kill Salomon. Holding a long knife in her hand, the witch looked at the huge angel who was holding on to the stone wall and staying there like a falcon. Come on, feather face. The sky above the arena was suddenly filled with orange-red flames, as if the hydrogen mixed with the air was ignited. The light of daylight flashed away, and the violent explosion even blew up part of the stone walls that had been preserved to this day. Immediately afterwards, the entire arena seemed to be a bucket full of water, filled with magma. The huge stone brick floor was sprayed into the air by tremendous pressure, and the excess lava flowed along the exit of the arena, like a river. Rushing out. The magic cast by Salomon can be used to deal with the scene in front of him. This is a protection spell, commonly used to resist high temperatures, that is, resistance to energy damage. Flame. Is a second-level spell. It has an excellent cost performance, which can make Bunita ignore the possible damage caused by some splashing magma and flames. Of course, this magic is not invincible. After the damage resisted exceeds the range that this magic can bear, the resistance to energy damage, flame will lose its effect. Therefore, Bunita can only fight quickly, and it is not a good idea to fight the enemy in the magma. This is one of the biggest battles Salomon has seen so far. He just took a few steps back when he saw the witch stepping on a huge stone that flew into the air. The next moment, she appeared on the stone wall step, and in the blink of an eye, she stepped on the foot of the fortitude angel again. Huge body. Immediately afterwards, she jumped up suddenly, grabbing the sharp jaw of a dragon head with both hands, and slammed the angel on the unsolidified magma like an over-the-shoulder throw. Then there were several muffled loud noises. The huge body of the angel was swung back and forth by the witch in the arena, and hit the ground and walls. Even Salomon, who was standing outside the arena, could feel the tremors on the ground. Suddenly, there was a deafening wailing sound, and the angel's fiery blood sizzled on the lava, and the blood-red steam floated up like a cloud, and was then dispersed by the scorching air. Salomon knew that Bunita was strong, but he didn't expect the witch to be so powerful. But only such a person can kill Badr. Salomon doesn't want the supreme mage to make another move. The price is really too high. When the angel flew up again, Salomon was surprised to find that the two dragon heads, one red and one blue, together with the slender neck of the fortitude angel had disappeared, and only two of the chins of the huge inverted human face remained. Holes gushing blood. The face that was originally as quiet as marble was also full of anger at this moment. It opened its mouth and roared wildly, and the earth began to shake violently. The angel fortitude, Fortitudo, was roaring and singing, and it exerted its ability to the extreme. The vibration of the mountain body became more and more intense, and the dull sound resounded from the ground, quickly approaching the ground, announcing the coming of judgment like the drums of the doomsday. Immediately afterwards, there was a boo, like opening the cap of a soda bottle. A huge amount of lava wrapped around the rock and spewed out under tremendous pressure. The accumulated potential energy even pushed the entire arena high into the sky. Blinking suddenly, the sky flew up, and the clouds that came over did not know when. The arena made of stone disintegrated in an instant. The corridors, stone pillars, stone walls, and the most iconic ancient astrologer. All these partners who had not been separated in the past hundreds of years, bid farewell to gravel, smoke, and magma at this moment, and began to part ways. Salomon got into the mirror dimension at the first time. With his proficiency in the magic of Vizandi, he opened the mirror dimension faster and faster. If not, he would probably die in the first torrent of magma and the rain of gravel came. With his excellent eyesight, he saw the fortitude angel fly upside down, and a huge black crow appeared in the sky. When the demon was summoned, the sky also emitted a blood-colored radiance. At the same time, the tail ring in Salomon's left hand was also heating up. He naturally learned the message of the demon and the sealing rune on it. This demon is the 7th among the 39 pillars of demon gods, named Malphas, the rank of Earl, and commanding 40 legions. It shows people in the image of a crow, or it can change into a human shape, with a hoarse voice, it can build houses and towers, and it can tell the summoner the desire, thoughts and actions of the enemy. But this demon can also be summoned by Bunita, which is one of the contracts she signed, and the Angel of Fortitude also became a sacrifice that Bunita offered to Malphas. The crow, which covered the sky and the sun, grabbed the angel tightly with its 2 paws, and pecked at the huge body of the stoic angel with its sharp beak. Where Salomon could not see, Malphas pecked the angel out of a huge hole. But when Malphas wanted to fall to the ground, Bunita withdrew her magic power, her black feathers turned back into black hair, and returned to the witch along the summoning circle. Immediately afterwards, all the falling gravel seemed to have been exerted a force suddenly, and they all slammed into the incomplete angel. The summoning circle was activated again, and countless blood-stained, cold and slippery long, thin arms grabbed to the angel of perseverance, dragged it to the crimson gate of the abyss. A black figure descended from the sky, far faster than those falling rocks. Salomon looked at the direction of Bunita's flight, which was the direction of the sunrise and the crescent canyon. The mystic looked over there worriedly. He didn't know whether it was a coincidence or intentional that the witch flew there, but there was every evidence that Balder really hoped that Bayonetta would take such an adventure. But until now, no one knows about Badra's plan, and Salomon doesn't think Luca can investigate any facts. But Lumen Sage Badra will definitely face Bunita in person in the end, even if he is Bunita's father, because he is the priest of Jubilus and the owner of the right eye. To revive Jubilus, both his and Bayonetta's powers are necessary. And what Salomon has to do is to ensure that Badr can face Bunita face to face. Only with this opportunity, the witch can kill him with that lipstick. In order to ensure this possibility, he had to ensure that Bayonetta's little adventure did not go wrong. While Balder was scheming Bayonetta, why wasn't the Supreme Mage also scheming Balder? Salomon doesn't need a specific plan yet, he just needs to execute it. It's just that after the witch fell into the canyon by the mystic, Salomon lost her coordinates. He summoned Pegasus with a figurine, and after feeding an apple to the pure white Pegasus, Salomon took the golden rein and rode on it, and drilled out of the mirror dimension along the portal, flying to Sunrise and Crescent Canyon with 2 huge stone statues. After coming to Sunrise and Crescent Canyon this time, Salomon saw many enemies that he had never seen before. The sky here is populated by many small angels, such as a large group of angels with cupid faces, deer and decorations, and cachet and compassion with sharp metal wings. Although these angels are not very powerful, they are extremely numerous. If Salomon wants to break through them with his own magic, he must exhaust his spirit. If using tricks, the trick he has with the longest attack distance is magic energy explosion, but it can only attack one target. The flying speed of these angels is also extremely fast. Salomon, who spends at least 2.5 seconds chanting a spell, is very likely to be surrounded by them and stabbed to death with a sharp blade. But Athena also gave Salomon a shield, yes, that is Aegis. Salomon sat on the back of Pegasus, holding his shield, and flew over the canyon. He saw many little angels turned into stones, falling from the sky like raindrops, crashing out of the canyon full of ruined walls. One pit after another. At this moment, almost all the angels staying above the canyon were attracted by Salomon, and they rushed towards him one after another, but turned into stones because they looked directly at Medusa's head. However, some larger angels are not petrified so quickly, including the inspired angels among the upper 3 ranks of angels. It was a red angel with a long body, and white penance belts spread all over the body like stripes. Its tail was flat and forked, like a snake's tongue. The head of the inspired angel is also similar to that of a snake, with 2 huge fangs in the upper jaw, but the lower jaw is densely covered with small, bone-grinding teeth, and the mouth is also a disturbing dark purple. As usual, its head is covered with flesh and blood gold-rimmed armor. On both sides of the head, there are 2 thin fin-like feathers, and a golden decoration extending from the back of the head looks like a snake intertwined when mating. Inspired angels never land on the ground. They often swim in the air. Their goal is to devour followers of darkness, so they have big mouths like snakes. Even if the inspired angel saw Medusa's head, it would still be able to chase Salomon for a while before the huge body was completely petrified. If Pegasus hadn't disliked Salomon's poor horse riding skills and changed the flight trajectory by himself, Salomon and Pegasus would have been swallowed into the belly of the angel long ago. But there are too many angels here. After several extremely dangerous dodges, there are still many angels in front of Salomon. If it weren't for Pegasus' excellent flying skills, Salomon would not be able to stay here more than an hour. But fortunately, these angels seemed to have received an order, and stopped chasing after Salomon left a certain area, which also made the mystic mage heave a sigh of relief. At this time, the sun had already set in the west, and the shadow crawled out of the bottomless valley again, as if a person who was greedy for the sun stretched out his hand towards the place where the warmth remained. The thin moon has appeared above the setting sun. The lower half of the moon is dyed red by the nostalgic sunlight, while the upper half is dark blue-purple. The color of the junction is crumpled together. And several stars that cannot be seen during the day. The stars are also blooming at this moment. Suddenly, many inspired angels who were originally flying towards Salomon turned their heads and started flying towards the west. End of this chapter. Chapter 70 Unexpected Choices. From time to time there were loud noises in the deep valley. In addition to the sound of some petrified fallen angels smashing on the ground, there are also the sounds of those ancient buildings collapsing. The setting sun that was supposed to stay on the western horizon for a while suddenly disappeared, replaced by a full moon rising into the sky and dense dark clouds. Salomon suddenly went into a trance, thinking that he had misremembered the time. He quickly realized that the time here had been artificially set forward, and the sunrise and moonrise did not follow the laws of nature at all. At night, the sunrise and crescent canyon will start to thunder and lightning, and the temperature will drop sharply. As a last resort, Salomon could only lower the flying height of Pegasus, so as not to die from the lightning strike due to his stupidity. Such a situation is not worth making a fuss about. In the world of magic, there are all kinds of situations. What makes Salomon curious is what, or what magic, caused the current situation. This valley is full of weirdness. It seems that this is a place isolated from the outside world. The nature here has its own way of operation, as if you can switch between day and night by pressing a few buttons. In addition, the endless fog and thunderstorms all over the clouds do not seem to be formed naturally. Of course, Salomon couldn't draw conclusions based on this phenomenon. After all, he didn't feel that he had passed through any demi-plane. Just seeing the statues of the sage and the witch in the distance, one can know that this scene must be related to the magic of these two tribes. The mystic thought to himself, now is not the time to think about these things. If you are interested in this kind of magic, you can explore it later. Right now, those snake-like inspired angels are flying in one direction, and other angels, such as deer and decorations or cachet and compassion, seem to be in the same direction. Salomon's lost interest no longer pursued him, as if they had a more important mission. This also made Salomon slightly relieved. The end point of the inspired angel's flight direction is the statue of the sage, but Salomon did not see them return. Before that, the place where Salisa appeared was the wing platform of the statue of the sage, and at that time, neither Bunita nor Salomon had any interest in searching these two buildings. But now, they went around and came back. With his own eyesight, Salomon, who was riding on Pegasus's back, saw those huge stones flying up one after another from a distance, as if a gust of wind was surrounding it, and the dark clouds in the sky were running rapidly. The endless fog in the valley was also blown by the strong wind, hitting the towering buildings like waves. "Pegasus, my dear friend," said Salomon, "will you still walk on hooves? Then we may not be able to fly, the wind is too strong here, and I don't think you want to be." "How many times did the lightning strike?" Pegasus neighed in dissatisfaction. Its voice was clear, piercing through the fog and thunder, and echoing in the canyon. It snorted, shook its head, and slapped Salomon's face with its white mane. Pegasus seems to despise Salomon's questioning of its ability. It is impossible to say how good the relationship between Salomon and Pegasus is. If it is not for Athena's order and the golden rain, it wouldn't want to be carrying an imp, but it's always nice to have apples. There's no such thing as sweet food in the astral plane. The white Pegasus galloped up the steep cliff. It spread its wings and flapped it from time to time to provide lift across the gap between the mountains. Salomon, who was riding on its back, hardly felt the bumps, and he felt that it was no different from flying in the air at this time. He raised his head and looked at the two huge stone sculptures from a distance. An angel like a giant appeared there, with a gust of wind surging around it, and the clouds swirled like a vortex on the sea surface, and it floated above the stones and mist. But after a while, the angel disappeared, and the storm stopped. What does this mean? Bunita stood on the platform with the head of the statue of the sage, and a figure in red leather stood on the other end of the platform, and an angel like a giant floated in front of the woman. The angel demanded, "This is the second time. Explain why you are in our way. It's your useless subordinates who are hindering you." Jean said with disdain. She raised her pistol and said, "I will deal with this matter with my own means, and you don't need to take action." As soon as Joan's words fell, the angel disappeared in place along with the bell in the void. Bellunita narrowed her eyes. She couldn't figure out why Joan would help her, driving away the angel of Tempera Ntia, who was the same as the angel of fortitude and represented the element of wind. "I think when you came here, you regained some feeling." Joan turned around and looked at the witch. "Do you feel better, Bayonetta?" The witch pushed her glasses, and she asked in a slightly joking tone, "Who are you? Don't say you are my long-lost sister." "Sister? Don't be joking. You and I fought for the witch's throne." At first, Joan was a little angry, but she quickly calmed down and pointed her gun at Bayonetta. She raised her face with a dissatisfied expression. In her heart, a voice kept urging her to kill her former enemy. Joan took a deep breath and tried to suppress the voice in her heart. She said, "Sleeping Beauty, since you are back, it is time to continue our battle." Joan of Arc gave Bunita a very strong sense of déjà vu. In several fights, she always brought back some memories of Bunita. Of course, Bayonetta will not refuse such a good thing, whether it is from the perspective of restoring memory or Bayonetta's pure competitiveness. The memory of the witch is still in Joan stabbing her chest with a sword. Oh, and the angels of fortitude, and the cacophony of crowds pounding the gates like madmen out of their minds. But that angel was already dead, and Bunita killed it with her own hands. Although she didn't know exactly what happened that year, the witch still felt that she was much happier after killing the angel of fortitude. "Aren't you awake yet?" At some point, Joan of Arc appeared behind Bunita. Her hand was steady, and the gun was aimed at the witch's vitals. When Bayonetta turned back to face her, Joan shot Bayonetta in the eye without hesitation. As the bullets whirled and approached, Bayonetta suddenly dodged. Then raised the pistol and returned a shot. The moves of the two were almost the same, but this time, Bayonetta was slightly better. After a few collisions, she raised her leg and kicked Joan off the platform forcefully. "These idiots are meddling in their own business. But that's not bad," Joan of Arc said dissatisfied. In front of her, the link between the stone-hewn platform and the statue was suddenly torn apart by a force, and the gust of wind that had not been paused for a long time was blown up again, and the huge platform was swept up by the powerful airflow, flipping rapidly into the sky. Joan had the same competitive spirit as Bunita, and she saw this as a challenge, so she leaped from the stone wall and jumped back into the platform. Like Bunita, Joan ignored the Earth's gravity, standing steadily on the rapidly flipped ground. The strong wind blew the entire canyon, and the closer it was to the two stone statues, the stronger the wind was. Had it not been for the powerful horse of Pegasus, Salomon would have been overturned by the strong wind surrounding the canyon, and might even have been blown into the sky. But the strong wind still had some impact on them. Salomon and Pegasus had to squint their eyes and restrain their wings to avoid being blinded by the gravel and dust brought by the wind. In his blurred vision, Salomon saw that the head of the statue of the sage broke off and circled with the strong wind. Immediately afterwards, the head of the statue of the sage knocked off the head of the statue of the witch. Two huge stones accompanied by the torrent, it crashed into the stone statue, and shattered into a pile of extremely dangerous, rapidly spinning rubble that could easily smash people into flesh. Salomon didn't see Bayonetta, he only saw a vigorous black cheetah leaping from the ruined wall, crossing the whirling wind and the full moon in the icy night sky. He had an intuition that amazing magical power had already explained the identity of the cheetah. But before Salomon rode Pegasus to chase after him, a ring of sparkling portals opened beside him. As he connected with the real world, Salomon's cell phone rang. But Salomon didn't care about the phone, but turned to look at the portal. "Salomon!" Modu stood on the other side of the portal. "The Venerable is calling you. Besides, you have no time to waste." Salomon asked in surprise, "What happened?" "I don't know," Modu said with a strange expression. "Not long ago, the Venerable brought back a little girl, who couldn't be coaxed well. But the Venerable said, as long as you go back." "Little girl, Teresa." Salomon was very surprised that the Venerable would know about Teresa, but he dismounted and took Pegasus back. He passed through the portal and walked into Kamatage's headquarters where it was always snowing. "The Venerable is waiting for you in the meditation room." After leaving a word to Salomon, Modu turned and left in a hurry, as if he was busy doing something. Salomon looked at the headquarters square. All the apprentices who were supposed to be training here had disappeared, the library was also locked, and all the mystics seemed to have disappeared overnight. He walked towards the meditation room of the Supreme Mage with great doubts, but before he opened the door, he heard a burst of childish laughter. "This is Salisa's voice." Salomon will never forget the crybaby's voice. Once he hears her cry, Salomon will have corresponding stress symptoms, including cleaning and cleaning. Coax the children. Salomon walked in and saw Salisa sitting behind a long table, holding a puppet and a chubby grey short-haired cat in her hands, and the Supreme Mage was feeding candy to Salisa. The expected cry of Salisa did not appear, and it was obvious that Salisa and the Supreme Mage got along very well. Big brother. Salomon's push on the door caught Salisa's attention, and when she saw Salomon, she called out cheerfully, "Big brother! Are you going to take me to find mommy?" "Later, Salisa." Salomon turned his eyes to the Supreme Mage, and the Venerable said helplessly, "You were not so funny when you were young. You were always bored in the room and didn't come out. Because you're autistic. I'm an old man, and you want me to have some fun feeding the cubs." Salomon sat next to Teresa, he stroked the little girl's head, and took the short-haired cat from her with a loveless face. He asked, "Teacher, where are the others? I saw Brother Modu running away in a hurry, did something happen?" "It's not a big deal," the Supreme Master said with a flat expression. "When you ensure that Bunita acts according to the established track, Kamataj must also ensure that Jubileus recovery cannot appear in front of the world. You know how advanced technology is now. If the satellite is aimed at Vigrid, the secret of the angel will no longer exist. As a high-tech city, Vigrid has attracted countless spies. Modu and the others are preparing to unite, cast a spell, open the mirror dimension, and wrap the entire Vigrid inside. I think brothers and sisters are qualified for this job." Salomon continued to ask, "Then why did you call me back?" "You forgot Teresa," said the Supreme Mage. "Remember to take Teresa to Vigrid." "What? That's a battlefield." "No, absolutely not." Salomon's eyes widened, as if he had heard something unbelievable. His expression was very stiff. This was the first time His Holiness saw Salomon's emotions. So excited. He frowned, and subconsciously raised his voice, "Saresa can't live there for a few minutes. And there are so many angels there. Take her there." The Venerable's expression remained unchanged, "It's a given." "Salomon, I'm afraid you have no choice." End of this chapter. Chapter 71 Phoenix and the Madman's Missile. The Ancient One Mage is the actual ruler of the earth. This title is not obtained by relying on sensational elections and empty political promises. Everyone can smell the bloody smell on the throne. As the king, the Supreme Mage has the right to decide the life of everyone on the earth. This is an unquestionable authority. Although His Holiness did not interfere with the development of human civilization, nor did he exercise authoritarian rule on the earth, but His Holiness was like a king when making certain decisions, and did not allow others to question them. In other words, other people's doubts can't affect the Supreme Mage at all. What democracy, what human rights, all the orders developed by human civilization lose their meaning in front of this throne of bones, because what sits on it is the epitome of the cruelest competition between the universes. That is the continuation of human reason, and it is the most basic right to exist. Salomon didn't know what possibility the Venerable saw with the eye of Agamotto, and the Venerable's arrangement for Salisa. But he still wanted to persuade his teacher to keep Salisa away from there. Because Teresa is innocent, he can kill a werewolf cub without changing his face, but facing a young human, Salomon can't bear to push her into the abyss at all, facing the blood and fire test. "Teacher," Salomon said, "I don't know what role Salisa will play in this plan, but it is too dangerous. She has no ability to protect herself, and she will die if she is not careful. Only when Salisa arrives in Vigrid, Bayonetta can kill Baldur." Facing Salomon's questioning, the Supreme Mage remained indifferent. "Besides, Salisa will be fine, Baldur will not hurt her. Yes, no angel will harm her. I think, even if Teresa is Baldur's daughter, the angels will not look up to her because of it. We all know the attitude of extra-dimensional creatures towards human beings." Salomon was a little anxious, the speed of speech also accelerated a lot. "In their eyes, human beings are like ants. Do you think they will take care of her specially during the battle? Even Lumen Sage is just a mere human in their eyes." The Supreme Mage glanced at Saresa, who was whispering to the puppet, and sighed. "Saresa is the key to awakening Jubileus by the Sage of Lumen Baldur." The Venerable said, "No matter what, he will not let Teresa be harmed. Not only that, all angels will not harm Saresa, but will protect her, even with his own life." "Teacher, I don't know which are your schemes and which are Baldur's schemes." Salomon frowned tightly, he glanced at Teresa, then turned to look at the Supreme Mage, "But can you guarantee, Salisa will be safe and sound?" "I promise." The Supreme Mage was a little happy and a little sad, but she still made a promise. She knew how much the young man in front of her trusted her, and she would not let her trust be overdrawn here. Salomon's cherishment of human beings and hatred of extradimensional creatures are very consistent with the educational purpose of Karmatage, but in some respects, Salomon's heart is really too soft. Just like Odin adopted Loki, Salomon is the supreme mage's long-term plan for the seventh throne. If the Venerable's plan comes true, Salomon will lose everything he is attached to. However, the Venerable also knew that Salomon had no attachment to the position of the supreme mage. His lazy character made Salomon more willing to squat in his small room to study magic, which relieved the supreme mage. And the supreme mage who felt guilty was also getting out of the earth, following eternity, and before completing the materialization of the soul, he was ready to make compensation to Salomon. Salomon pondered for a while, but the Supreme Master did not urge him, because the Supreme Master knew that Salomon was at a fork in the road of thought. It is easy to say the truth with the mouth, but it is another matter to actually practice it. In fact, His Holiness' expectations for Salomon have always been somewhat contradictory. On the one hand, he hopes that Salomon can attach importance to the survival of human beings, and on the other hand, he hopes that Salomon can kill decisively and sacrifice part of his life decisively. The inevitable collision of the two contradictory thoughts after indoctrination, even the Supreme Mage himself had a very difficult time finding the balance. However, His Holiness still hoped that Salomon could find the balance by himself. The reason he thought out by himself was always more useful than what others said. If he couldn't find it, he might be crazy. In the eyes of some people, the performance of the Supreme Mage is a manifestation of not understanding people's hearts. Salomon also noticed it, but didn't say anything more. Because he believes that it is extremely rare for the Supreme Mage to bear the pressure of human existence without a mental breakdown, and this pressure has continued for thousands of years, and it is reasonable to show some abnormalities. But she still taught Salomon all the thoughts she could give, and let Salomon choose whether to accept it or not. I understand. After a while, Salomon made a decision. Since the Supreme Mage guaranteed that Salisa would not be harmed, then it would not. There is no need for the Supreme Mage to deceive him. It's just that he was still worried about Teresa's safety, so he also came up with a compromise. Demon pets are of course useless. The chubby grey short-hair cat is just a cute thing. He plans to summon a demon to protect Salisa. And he thought for so long just to choose a suitable demon. This practice was also accepted by the Supreme Master. After obtaining the permission of the Supreme Master, Salomon began to draw the summoning circle in the meditation room. The summoning circle this time is different from the monster summoning magic circle. This can make the devil stay in the main material plane for a long time, and it is a spell of the summoning sub-school of the conjuration system. And this summoning circle is a square, with 2 concentric circles nested in each corner, and runes are written in the 4 corners. There are 3 concentric circles in the square, and 4 names are written on the outermost circle. Ihei, Ilian, Eloa, and Iova each correspond to a direction, representing crown, beauty, foundation, and understanding. In addition, there are 4 pentagrams, and Salomon stands in the center. Salomon mixed his own blood in the ink, because his blood is the best material used to summon the 72 demon gods. In addition to his blood, there are 4 incense burners containing frankincense and myrrh, which are placed on in the corners around. When he lit the incense and finished chanting the spell, the other side of the summoning circle couldn't wait to respond. Accompanied by a burst of beautiful singing, a giant eagle with golden and bright red feathers rushed out from the formation. It spread its incomparably gorgeous wings and floated in mid-air. Its long feathers moved automatically without wind. The golden red shining between its wings illuminates the slightly dim meditation room. Sarasa stared at this beautiful scene, dumbstruck. She carefully touched the golden red light spot that floated in. The light spot was not hot, and it disappeared immediately after being touched. My lord! The giant eagle opened its beak, its voice was immature like a child, a burst of sweet notes overlapped with its voice, making its voice like a beautiful poem. It said, "You welcome. Is there a new reincarnation? My legion will serve you, waiting for you to return to the 7th throne. This is the number 72, 7 demon kings of the 30 pillar demon gods, Phoenix, Marquis of rank, commanding 20 legions. His nature is kind and gentle, and he is the best choice for bringing children. Only Cheshire, the chubby grey short hair felt threatened, ears pulled back and hissing incessantly. But I didn't invite you here for this." Salomon had a stiff face. Although he didn't know why these demon gods thought he was Solomon, it didn't prevent him from ordering them. He said, "I need your protection, one person. Happy to serve you." Phoenix flapped his wings slowly, landed in front of Salomon, and lightly touched the tail ring of his left hand with his bird's beak. "I will obey any order you have, in the past, in the present, the same goes for the future. Protect her." Salomon pointed to Teresa. She will be in danger next, but I don't want her to lose her life. She's cute and powerful. Phoenix walked up to Salisa, and after bowing slightly to the Supreme Mage, he tilted his head slightly, looking at the big mouth in front of him like a real bird. It's little girl, my lord, I think, maybe a lot more powerful than you think. But she can't do anything now, Salomon said, and likes to cry. Don't worry, my lord, I like children the most. Phoenix snorted contentedly after being hugged by Teresa. I will definitely carry out your orders. Salomon called the reporter's mobile phone back, and the call was picked up soon after. Before Salomon could speak first, Luca complained first, from the magma river and earthquake in the old town of Vigrid, to the violent wind and rain that swept across Vigrid, and the crazy impact on Vigrid. The strange ocean current and the sky that turned into glass shards in the distance, he has never encountered such a strange thing in his life. Several times, Salomon wanted to speak, but was interrupted by Luca's continuous complaints. He kept talking about how he escaped from death, and what Vigrid looked like after being destroyed. Now, the entire city has been sealed off by storms and waves, and no one can get in or out. Salomon still waited for Luca to finish speaking first. He wanted to know what happened during the time he was away from Vigrid. The real situation may be worse than what Luca said. The sky here is grey and black, and thick dark clouds almost fell to the top of the tall buildings. Thunder and lightning scurry around in the clouds, like high beams in the fog. The breathless torrential rain spread from the sea to the city. The lead grey icy sea water formed several large whirlpools, which tightly surrounded Vigrid. The tornado rolled up the sea water, sucked it into the clouds, and then sent the city pours. Vigrid, located on the ocean, has truly become an isolated island surrounded by heavy rain. Whether it is a ship or an airplane, it is lucky not to crash, let alone take off, in such bad weather. Salomon stood on the black reef near Vigrid, and the sea water splashed on the reef from time to time soaked his clothes. With him were the mages of Karmatage, with rays of magic shining in their hands. Here they put a final blockade on Vigrid, completely isolating the place from the rest of the world. Later, Salisa will be sent to Bunetta's side, which is not refuted by Salomon. Where are you, Luca? Also, where is Bayonetta? Salomon waited until Luca finished talking nonsense before opening his mouth. He raised his head and looked at the mirrored dimension of the slowly closing arc on the sky. You'd better say it quickly, after a while the satellites won't work, and nobody's calling. What? Does all this have anything to do with you? Luca shouted, whatever, I'm on Sun Island, come here quickly, Salomon. Although I know that the Ragna followers are all lunatics, but they were crazy beyond my expectation. You can't believe what I saw a row of missile launchers, although I don't know what the warheads are, but any fool knows, they are going to launch missiles. Where's the target? Salomon asked, but he didn't take it seriously, because after the mirror dimension is closed, no missile can fly. Vigrid. Missiles exploding in the mirror dimension are harmless. Wait, I'm reading the information, wait. Luca said hastily. I didn't urge. Salomon yawned quietly, he was tired enough today. Found it. Holy shit. They. Luca took a deep breath, the target of these missiles, is themselves. End of this chapter. Chapter 72 Best Friend. Salomon admitted that even though it was clearly written in the history books, he still hadn't learned his lesson and seriously underestimated the madness of monotheism. Before that, Bishop Ragnar led his disciples to commit suicide to celebrate the coming of Jubilus Easter, but now, it is not incomprehensible that the sage Baldur intends to use the life of a city to celebrate. The supreme sorcerer promised that the angel would not harm Teresa, and neither would Baldur. But missiles have no eyes, and explosions and shock waves cannot distinguish everyone's identity. Now Sarasa has his magic pet, the grey short-haired cat, and a demon, Phoenix, by her side. But even so, Salomon was not assured that Salisa could survive the missile attack. The destructive power of weapons made by humans has long surpassed many magics. If there are as many missiles as Luca said, even if those missiles are loaded with conventional warheads, they will be enough to destroy the entire city. Salomon, what are you going to do? Luca remembers yelling on the other end of the phone, you don't really plan to wait for those missiles to launch, do you? Salomon looked at the sea surface near Vigrid Sun Island. An invisible giant whale drilled out of the ocean, and the grey water flowed down along the invisible shape. Although his sight was blocked by the white rain curtain and he couldn't see the specific situation, he could also feel that the giant whale was writhing in pain on the sea surface. Can hear the pained cries from another world. This giant whale set off huge irregular waves and fierce ocean currents. It is probably the cause of the large whirlpools in the sea around Sun Island. That giant whale is very likely to be the angel of wisdom, Sapientia, in the four elements, and Bunita is also very likely to be fighting it. Salomon took a few deep breaths, and he planned to get rid of things that might endanger Teresa's life before she was sent to Bunita's side. "Wait," he said, "I'll settle this. But I won't wait for you, I'll tell you the location, it's on the top floor of the tall building next to the Isabel building." Lucas seemed to have sensed Salomon's emotions, and he said, "Try to keep up, I'm going to disarm the missile first." "Gone. Good luck." Salomon hung up the phone and turned to look at Master Wang beside him. He said, "Send me there." "What? Are you crazy?" As Salomon's former partner, Master Xiao Wang and Salomon were still in a group. "Although you have not been assigned a task, maybe you will go crazy after passing Modu. Do you think you can survive from under the missile? It's easier to destroy than to make. Although I can't make missiles, it's easy to break some electronic components. I can also screw bolts. If it doesn't work, I can cut them open." Salomon said, "Besides, this is my business, Brother Wang, that little girl will be sent to the island later, I can't keep those things, it will kill her. You know where to send me, I save magic power. Don't open the portal directly to the top of the building, open it to a higher place, I won't be injured, but I don't want to be attacked as soon as I go out, and I don't want the enemy to come in through the portal." "Okay." After a while, Master Xiao Wang nodded in agreement, "Be careful. But you have to know, if Modu comes to ask, I will definitely say, I must let him know where you went." "I understand." Salomon said, "I will come back after I finish this matter." "Be careful." "I will." Sparks flashed under the dark clouds, a circular portal opened in the gap of the roaring thunderstorm, the surrounding rain quietly separated, a figure in a red robe jumped down from the portal, and quickly fell to the ground. The portal opened by Mage Xiao Wang is located in the sky above Sun Island, which was requested by Salomon in order to give him the opportunity to observe the situation. The wind whistled in his ears, and the rain hit him hard, taking away his body temperature and enthusiasm, and the smell of rusty rain came to his nostrils. The Isabel building is the tallest building on Sun Island, and it is also the most distinctive. The golden wings spread out on both sides of the building are still shining in the dark rainy night under the bright white xenon lamps. Salomon adjusted his posture, chanted a spell, controlled the airflow around him, and pushed him to glide there with a small thrust. The vision of the saint allowed him to see the buildings on Sun Island clearly. A glowing circular shaft, and around the shaft, he saw what Lucas said was a launcher, on which rows of missiles had been deployed. He said the spell again, and with a little trick, pushed himself that way. On the grey missile warhead standing like a crown of thorns, stood a woman in a red leather jacket. When Salomon saw her, she also saw Salomon. The woman raised the gun in her hand with disdain, and fired a shot at Salomon who was gliding rapidly. When Salomon saw her raising her hand, he had a premonition that something was wrong. He clenched the feather he had been holding tightly with his teeth, folded his hands, and a huge shield made of orange sparks blocked it. In front of him, Joan fired several more shots, but only the sparks from her shield proved she hadn't missed. Facing the approaching Salomon, she chuckled lightly, and jumped off the erected warhead, allowing Salomon to crash into the ground with the seraphim shield. The mystic curled up, and the kinetic energy falling from the sky was instantly dispelled by the seraphim shield. He rolled on the ground and stood up again. This made him look a bit embarrassed, and his clothes were covered with rain. "I thought it would be Bunita who came." Joan of Arc said disdainfully, "I didn't expect it to be you. Could it be that Kamataj also wanted to prevent Jubilus from recovering? Aren't you very clear?" Salomon spat out the feather in his mouth. Now is not the time to cherish the magic power. After he saw the woman in front of him, the way the 4 pistols were held made Salomon more vigilant. Not only because she was able to hit Salomon with a pistol hundreds of meters away, but also because of the woman who used exactly the same technique as Bayonetta mentioned. He can only presuppose that this woman is as strong as Bunita and also has witch time, so that he can make a corresponding strategy against the enemy. He looked at the cocked weapons around him. These weapons made by human wisdom hide all their fierce emotions deep in their hearts. Before they are launched, they are like quiet ladies. Once they are lifted into the air, they will become fierce and brutal beasts, leaving only crumbling buildings and charred remains. Are you looking for this? Joan shook the transmitter in her hand. A big red button was very conspicuous, and she put it on the guardrail. This is something for Bunita to fight me with all her strength, I can't let you take it away. Speaking of it, you Kamataj are really annoying. Before the war between the witch and the sage started, you were screaming and screaming. If it weren't for the Supreme Mage, how could you stay until now? Or, your goal is the treasure of our clan. When she said the last sentence, Joan's relaxed expression suddenly became fierce. I have no idea about the left eye. Salomon looked at the angel's coat of arms in Joan's eyes, and he said, I guess you are also a witch, but I don't know why you took refuge in the sage, but no matter what, Jubilus is not allowed to wake up. Someone will solve that matter, and I am here only for the remote control in your hand. Ah, it's as annoying as a fly. Joan of Arc said impatiently, but before she could finish her words, spinning glass daggers covered her body, and the sharp edges quickly cut towards her body. Even if Joan raised her head to avoid the daggers that were aimed at her eyes, her calves and shoulders were cut open by the ubiquitous daggers. The second ring spell Dagger Cloud is not a magic that can be avoided by reaction. Even if Joan triggers the witch time, she jumped out of the space full of daggers as soon as she was injured. The wound was wrapped by her magic power to stop the bleeding. This magic did not bring much harm to Joan, but instead angered her. Salomon's goal was not to kill Joan of Arc, and he was not sure that he could kill Joan of Arc. The remote control that Joan threw aside was his goal. But the remote control is right behind Joan of Arc, and to get it, you have to pass the witch. I really hate you guys. Joan's tone was full of anger. She raised her pistol and fired several shots at Salomon. She shouted, you are as disgusting as angels. The bullet flew past Salomon without hurting him, who was running in a zigzag shape at all. This was the result of the joint spell mage armor and Salomon's reaction, allowing him to fall from Joan's gun. Escape. The mystic ran forward, orange-red sparks flashed from his hands, and the Ragada ring took shape in his hands, and then he threw the Ragada ring out. Salomon intends to force Joan away from the remote control, because her bullets cannot stop the trajectory of the spell. Joan dodged the spell sideways, and then her speed suddenly increased, stepping on the ring of Ragada, leaping to the sky above Salomon. Her right leg was like a battle axe, and slashed fiercely at the mystic. She wants to crush this annoying guy in front of her. Suddenly, Salomon moved, crossed his arms, and blocked the attack. This surprised Joan. The first time she had seen someone who could keep up with her, in which time. Salomon has untied some of the stigmata, which has greatly improved his combat effectiveness, but his soul essence does not allow him to last for too long. Joan subconsciously fired the pistol on the high-heeled shoes, and the gun flame erupted by Salomon's ear, illuminating half of his face, and the high temperature also made his skin a little scorched black. The deafening gunshots made Salomon's ears tingle, but it did not hinder Salomon's next actions. As soon as he turned his hand, he grabbed Joan's ankle with his left hand, took half a step forward, and at the same time bent his right hand to block the horizontal kick of Joan's left leg. The huge force caused him to fall to the left and fell to the ground, and Joan was also pulled to the ground by him. The witch put her hands on the ground, exerted strength on her waist and abdomen, and her slender and powerful legs directly lifted Salomon to the top. Facing her. She bent her right foot and kicked Salomon's abdomen violently again. The great pain caused the mystic to let go of her hand. The violent kick and the bullets fired at the same time knocked Salomon into the air. Get out of it! When Salomon was still in the air, the two pistols on Jean's high-heeled shoes were fired one after another, followed by several bullets, hitting Salomon hard. Salomon turned over and fell to the ground unscathed. The deformed warhead fell from his body to the ground, making a tinkling sound. The holy shroud was covered with the Supreme Mage's protective magic, and those bullets also brought him some bruises, which were no different from being punched hard. Other than that, there were no other scars. The mystic master let out a long breath, chanted the incantation again, bowed slightly, and rushed towards Joan of Arc. He stopped suddenly, and waved a whip like lightning with both hands, grabbed Joan's arm, and then, Salomon took a big step back, trying to knock Joan to the ground. But Joan's strength was far greater than that of Salomon, who hadn't completely liberated the stigmata. Some kind of wickedness made her grab the whip with her backhand and throw Salomon back. Not good. At this moment, Joan of Arc realized that she had been fooled, and the lightning chain disappeared instantly. She quickly raised her pistol and shot at Salomon, who was still in the air. But her bullets only pierced a cloud of silvery mist, and the mystic was already standing in front of the remote, spreading a shield. This is mine. He picked up the remote control and stood up straight, ignoring the fatigue caused by the stigmata. He shook the remote control at Joan, and then a current burst out in his hand, and the remote control short-circuited and smoked. He said, I don't think you'll treat me to afternoon tea or treat me to dessert, but I still have some questions for you. What's the problem? Seeing that the remote control was taken by Salomon, Joan of Arc relaxed instead, and stood there lazily, showing her beautiful body curves, and her fierce temperament disappeared all of a sudden. What are you going to do to Teresa? Why did Baldur let Teresa get close to Bayonetta? Ceresa. Joan said, how could I hurt Teresa, she is my best friend. Bayonetta. End of this chapter. Chapter 73. Joan's state was a little abnormal. When Salomon mentioned the names of Salisa and Bayonetta one after another, her voice suddenly froze. But soon she adjusted. Don't you think I can't launch missiles without the remote control? Joan pointed the gun at the mystic again, and said in a disdainful tone. Just when Joan was dazed, Salomon was already standing on the guardrail, holding a piece of parchment in his hand. The magic power of the attribute causation has a great effect, and I know exactly what this magic power can do. Salomon shook the parchment in front of Joan, so I prepared this. A piece of paper? What's the use? Joan of Arc had never seen the scroll, so she naturally didn't know Salomon's plan. And the mystic didn't intend to explain too much, he simply tore open the scroll and activated the magic on it. For a long time, Salomon has been adhering to the point of only the most suitable magic, not the most powerful magic to study, and the magic in the scroll is undoubtedly very suitable for the current situation. The second ring evocation spell, Darson's Hot Furnace, can raise the temperature in an area to extremely hot, causing damage and other effects to creatures and objects in the area. Due to Salomon's magic power, this magic can last here a period of time. Flame has always been the witch's weakness, which is shown by Bayonetta. She always thought that she hated Salomon's fire magic, even when they were hunting angels together. Now this weakness is used by Salomon. He arrived at Joan of Arc in front of him. After the spell was released, except for the corner where Salomon was standing, the entire top floor was shrouded in high temperature. The concrete floor on the top floor dried quickly, and the accumulated water evaporated into white steam, which then disappeared and completely vaporized. Before the raindrops hit the ground, they turned into gas and returned to the leaden clouds. Now, the entire roof is dry, and above Salomon, there is a layer of steaming white water vapor. But Salomon didn't stop there. A semicircular orange magic appeared in his hand. He threw the magic out. The target was not Joan, who jumped from the roof on the other side, but those weapons. Immediately afterwards, Salomon fell from the guardrail and fell to the ground. This ring of Ragator was modified by the Supreme Mage. Although it lacks a strong defense, it is extremely sharp for ordinary objects. Salomon's magic hovered over the roof, cutting a deep gash in each missile. Wrapped in insulation, Salomon couldn't tell the type of missiles if they had one, and the solid fuel under the metal casing was immediately ignited by the high temperature. The fire spewed out from the gap in the missile body and spread extremely quickly, enveloping all the missile launchers. Like the crown of thorns, the launcher spewed flames into the sky at this time. Just like the Olympic torch, the turbulent stream of flames soaring into the sky, it even illuminates half of Sun Island. Now, even if Joan did something to those missiles, they wouldn't be able to get them to fire. The fuel would burn out before it got into the engine. The next thing Salomon has to do is to find a way to land safely. The height of this building is enough for him to recite a spell. Although the feathers are gone, he still has a way to land safely. That trick is enough for him. Boya, why do you like doing such dangerous things so much? Before Salomon finished chanting the spell, he felt his waist and abdomen were tightly strangled by a pair of arms, and all the air was forced out. The spell was interrupted. And a vigorous body hugged him from behind. Salomon, who was 14 years old, once again felt what is called heavy oppression. I thought you were still fighting. Salomon breathed a sigh of relief. This voice is so familiar. Even though he is falling, Salomon still gave up the plan to continue chanting the spell. No one can ask a guy whose soul has been dead for decades to be able to maintain state of concentration. Before Bayonetta used the witch's unique magic to make butterfly wings appear behind her to slow down, she and Salomon crashed into a large piece of broken glass mirror that appeared in midair and disappeared. Baron Mordo has always been very serious in his work. He is one of the right-hand men of the Supreme Mage, and he is also the person Salomon least wants to meet. Especially his pair of eyes staring at you, as if to say you can quibble, you can believe it or not. He executed the orders of the Supreme Mage to an almost rigid level, and he was also the most loyal chef of the Comitage headquarters. Diners. Of course, it is also possible that the eyes are very eye-catching because of Baron Mordo's complexion. In fact, there are no harsh eyes at all. As for whether this statement is true or not, no apprentice is stupid enough to try it out. Good evening, Senior Brother Modu. Salomon greeted, and Bayonetta put him down in due course. Modu couldn't see his emotions clearly on that dark face, but obviously, he was not in a happy state. Behind him is the phoenix summoned by Salomon. It spreads one wing, revealing a pair of short legs and a fluffy grey tail hanging down under the wings. Baron Mordo said expressionlessly, "His lord asked me to send Salisa over." "Mommy." The little girl came out from under the golden red wings, holding the puppet and the loveless cat in her arms. As soon as Salisa saw Bunita, she immediately rushed out, pounced on Bunita, and clung to her thigh tightly regardless of the witch's disgusted expression. Although Bunita's expression was extremely disgusting, she still let Salisa get closer to herself. Because during the battle with the angel, she frequently heard Baldur's voice, which reminded her that if she wants to solve the mystery, she must take good care of Teresa and bring her to the center of Sun Island, Isabel Mansion, because she is the key to all mysteries. She originally contacted Salomon and asked him to bring Salisa here, but now, the actions of the mage priority were in her favor. Baron Mordo's mirror dimension is very timely, not only because Salomon is at risk of falling to his death, but also because Salomon overestimated the safety of the missile. Even through the mirror dimension, they could see that the upper part of the building completely collapsed under such an explosion, and the burning missile fell into it, and another explosion occurred. This reinforced concrete building was like a can that had been stuffed with a few firecrackers. It completely collapsed under such an impact. The successive explosions completely destroyed the foundation, and the towering building fell to the ground like a fallen giant. Even the torrential rain could not stop the dust from rising. Several nearby buildings affected by the explosion were also damaged to varying degrees, exposing the ferocious reinforced concrete, including the Isabel building. The glass mirrors of the buildings further away were also completely shattered under the shock wave, and the entire Sun Island rained broken glass. Teresa was frightened and pressed closer to Bayonetta. "I don't know whether it's luck or misfortune, but in order to celebrate Easter, Sun Island's traffic is more strict, and there are no ordinary people on the island, all of them are Ragnarians. The current Ragnar believers are all concentrated near the largest church on the island, waiting for the arrival of Easter, so there were no casualties in the explosion. But if the sage's plan is successful, they may not live long. The fanatical atmosphere is enough to affect everyone's thinking, and the Ragnar believers who originally cherished life may also commit suicide with a knife. But for Salomon, he doesn't care much about the life and death of those Ragnar believers. Anyway, they are all ready to use their souls to sacrifice. Even if this time is stopped, there will be a next time. Kamatiji is not a nanny, so she can keep an eye on them all the time. Nor did Baron Mordo express any opinion on the impending loss of the Ragnarites' lives, nor did Bunita, since what came next was more important. "Thank you, Brother Modu." Salomon sighed. He immediately felt that the evocation spells had a long way to go, and there was an urgent need to upgrade the ring. The straightforward magic of evocation is the most intuitive. Combat power will also be one of the magics that Salomon will need most when facing the enemy in the future. "The next order of the Venerable." Baron Mordo said, "The Venerable agrees with you to carry out the next task. But the premise is that you can save your life." "I think I will." Salomon looked at Salisa, and the fat cat in the middle, who was hugging Bunita's thigh tightly, and he said, "Always make sure that the last task can be completed, isn't it? Although I don't know what kind of mission the Venerable gave you." Modu squinted at Bunita, and let a witch solve this kind of thing, instead of dispatching all Kamatage. "But such it's not something you can intervene in. I hope you know where your limit is, that witch won't take care of you." "I'm not that stupid, of course I know when to run for my life." Salomon waved his hand, "Send us to the Isabel building, my magic power is running out." "The Supreme Mage has anticipated this, and it will restore your spirit." Modu stuffed a bottle of medicine to Salomon, and then began to cast spells, opening the portal. "This can remember. Save your life, I remember." Salomon blinked. "You are really suitable to be a nanny, Senior Brother Modu." The portal that Modu opened was at the gap where the Isabel building was blown up. Bunita took Salisa's hand and walked out from the mirror dimension. The little girl was followed by Phoenix and a grey man named Cheshire. Short-haired cat. Salomon followed closely and stepped onto the corridor full of broken glass, the solace of his shoes creaking. Just after leaving the mirror dimension, the smell of rain, which smelled like rust, rushed over like a tide again, and the broken glass shone, reflecting the distant fire, like orange-red embers on the marble floor. Just as he walked out, his cell phone rang again. "Did you see that explosion?" Luca's panicked voice came from the other side. "If I hadn't hid in the Isabel building, I would have. I did it." Salomon readily admitted. You actually. Well, you did a good job. At least no one was injured, except me. I almost died." "Okay, don't talk nonsense. The mystic mage said. There will be a bigger battle in the future, I suggest you run quickly, and no one will take care of you then. You are still as cold-blooded as ever, Salomon. Luca snorted, and he said, I have already traced this far, how could I give up? I am a man who can give his life for the truth. This kind of unclear explosion does not count. Then go for it. Salomon said to the phone, if you can survive the next battle. What? Luca was puzzled, but Salomon didn't mean to explain, but hung up the phone, stepped forward, and blocked Salisa behind him. Bayonetta stopped, and in front of her was a woman in a red leather coat. That was Joan, who escaped from the explosion on the roof. End of this chapter. Chapter 74, The Final Room. The appearance of Joan made Salomon feel like a formidable enemy. What is strange is that her attention was all on Bunita, and she never cast a single word on Salomon and Sarasa behind her eyes. Hatred, regret, all kinds of complicated emotions flashed in her eyes together with the angel's coat of arms, and even the storm outside the corridor could not extinguish that fiery emotion. You are so slow to come, I am impatient to wait. You have come this far, that should be enough, you have changed back to your former self. Joan raised her pistol and pointed at Bayuni Tower, said, the duel between us since ancient times, let it end here. Bayonetta pushed her glasses with the muzzle of her gun. When Salomon returned to Carmitage, Joan had fought her several times, and every time she recalled some long-lost memories, it also reminded Bunita of her forgotten ability, such as changing into an animal. But she still couldn't figure out what the purpose of this woman who was also a witch in front of her was. But the friend of an enemy is also an enemy, be she witch or sage. The Sage of Lumen, another observer who checks and balances the witch. There is an unbreakable commandment between us, that is, the intersection of light and darkness will bring disaster to the world. But 500 years ago, a child's birth is a blatant violation of this precept, and that child is you, Bunita. Joan of Arc's grey eyes shone with an inexplicable brilliance, and she said, the disaster that followed brought the two races into chaos. The vortex, the aftermath is still felt today. You are a hybrid of light and dark, the center of true chaos. To keep you alive would be an unbearable risk. When the eye of the world fell into our hands, the power of creation will be awakened. So the left eye, the precious left eye of our race, must not fall into the hands of others. What Joan of Arc said, Salomon and Bunita knew everything. The purpose of the sage Baldur is very obvious, that is to obtain the left eye of Beyonta to awaken the creator Jubilus, but the attitude of Baldur's subordinate, Joan of Arc, is very abnormal. She seems not to want Beyoncé Nita continued to move forward, the reason being that she did not want the left eye of the witch clan to fall into Badger's hands. Salomon listened silently to Joan of Arc's words, while at the same time he was also thinking about the intentions of the Supreme Mage. It is understandable that there are 2 or 5 boys in a team, but it is impossible for Baldur to be ignorant of Joan's attitude towards angels, but he still allows Joan to act. That means that this Lumen Sage is sure that Bayonetta will eventually hand over his left eye to him. And the key point of this plan is only Sarasa, who recently appeared beside Bayonetta. The Supreme Mage insisted on sending Sarasa to Bunita. Does this mean that the Venerable has seen the failure of Baldur's plan, so he generously sent Sarasa back, or is it that the Venerable has placed a spell on Sarasa, and when Baldur wants to use Sarasa to activate the Dark Hand, will it be countered? Bunita, it's time to end all of this. Joan of Arc stepped forward on the fine shards of glass, the high-heeled shoes made a creaking sound when they crushed the glass, and outside the corridor, a strong wind suddenly blew up. An angel with a 4-element halo on its head appeared next to the building. This angel has no head, neck, or feet. It only has a pure white face carved from marble on its chest. It has 2 extremely thick arms. Instead of palms, the arms ended with 4 hoses, and the shoulders glowed where they joined the body. This is the Temperance, Tempera Ntia, angel representing the wind element in the 4 elements of virtue. Before coming to Sun Island, Bayonetta had encountered this angel more than once. Now the angel was dissatisfied with Joan's intervention, and it threw its huge arm down into the corridor on its own. Boya! Bayonetta yelled, and Salomon didn't stiffen from the fast approach of the behemoth. Received. He bent down and hugged Salisa, who was stiff with fright. At the same time Phoenix also spread his wings and soared into the air, and the corridor was filled with orange-red flames. With the loud chirping of Phoenix, the Tempera Ntia angel and Joan of Arc slowed down a little. Salomon raised his hand, grabbed one of Phoenix's paws flying towards him, and disappeared in place. This is Phoenix's spell-like ability. Under the influence of this ability, Salomon and Salisa entered a grey world. Here, they can see the outside world, but everything is blurred and mixed colors. The mystic mage lightly tiptoed, and he and Teresa floated up. The little girl looked at everything around her in surprise, and at the same time hugged the puppet and cat tightly, and hid her face in Salomon's arms. It was obvious that she wanted to cry, but she held back. Phoenix spread his wings and floated above Salomon, and the flames burning on his feathers expelled the ghosts wandering in this plane. Immediately afterwards, Salomon, who was holding Phoenix's paw, returned to the real world together, and appeared not far from the fallen arm of the Angel of Tempera Ntia, while Bunita and Joan of Arc had already jumped out of the window and were in the building. Firefights in broken stairwells. Seeing the reappearance of Salomon, who had escaped the catastrophe, the Angel of Temperance waved again casually. The huge alien arm smashed the twisted metal window frame and the stone statue placed in the corridor, sweeping across the entire corridor. Phoenix grabbed Salomon and Teresa and flew up, then disappeared suddenly, appearing in the corridor on a higher floor. Facing such a powerful Angel of Temperance, Salomon is naturally unable to defeat him, but he doesn't need a frontal attack. Phoenix has a magic-like ability that can solve the problem of this outer plane creature, but it takes some time to prepare. So Phoenix, on Salomon's instructions, flew out of the shattered window to attract the attention of the Temperance Angel. The rays emitted from the Temperance Angel's face embedded in the chest followed Phoenix's flight path, cutting through the thick ground and walls, and cutting a curved arc on the building. And he ran up the stairwell with Teresa in his arms, waiting for Phoenix to prepare his spell, but he happened to bump into an unexpected person. Luca. Salomon raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, "You're not dead. How could I die in such a place? Also, what is the situation now? What is it that is destroying?" Luca complained loudly. The attack of the Temperance Angel smashed through the first floor, and Luca unfortunately, it became that pond fish. It was only thanks to his own gizmo, the gizmo that launched the hook, that he escaped. He said, "I also saw a big bird flying outside on fire. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would have thought I was crazy. An angel, very big. Also, I summoned that big bird, it's a phoenix." Salomon didn't stop, and Luca quickly followed. "What are you going to do?" Luca followed Salomon all the way up the small stairwell. "Although I haven't seen that thing, but from your tone, you seem to have a way." Salomon didn't talk nonsense, he estimated the time in his heart. Almost 1 minute later, he took Salisa and kicked open the small doors of the safe passage, and broke into the high-rise corridor of the Isabel building. The windows here were also shattered by the previous explosion. Phoenix, which was circling around the Isabel building, flew vertically along the surface of the building after receiving Salomon's telepathic call, followed by the Angel of Temperance. Salomon jumped down from the window, and was caught by Phoenix, who flew up, and flew him to Temperance Angel with him. He opened his mouth to read the spell, and the magic power caused a wave in the etheric plane. Even though the angel had enough faith, Salomon's voice still made the Temperance Angel fall into the fear of death. At this moment, Phoenix's spell-like ability was also activated, and with a faint explosion, the huge Angel of Temperance instantly disappeared. This is a combination of the first-level spell Cause Fear and the fourth-level spell Expulsion. In order to ensure the success of Phoenix's expulsion, Salomon took a risk in order to weaken the Tempering Angel's will. Obviously, the risk he took was worth it. The Angel of Temperance was successfully expelled to Jubilee's Kingdom of God, but the effect of this spell is only 1 minute at most. After 1 minute, the Angel of Temperance will return here, and Salomon can only quicken your pace. Phoenix flapped his wings vigorously, and brought Salomon and Sirisa to fly quickly past the surface of the building, and landed at the top of the Isabel building, near the bright white sphere floating above the tip of the building. This sphere is the core of the Isabel building, and the white light band surrounding Barda's room actually has a substance, called the Psychic Road, and the end of this road is a portal leading to the sphere. Phoenix brought Salomon and Teresa down onto the path of spiritual energy, and they stepped firmly on this light belt. It may be because of the magic used to build this road, the high winds could not affect the pedestrians on this road at all, which prevented Salomon and Salisa from being blown down by the wind. "Dad!" As soon as she entered the room, Teresa shouted towards the man sitting on the high-backed chair on the other side of the spherical room. She stretched out her 2 chubby hands. And the puppet and cat fell to the ground. The man is wearing a white robe with gold trim and a golden mask on the left half of his face. Baldur was Saris's father. Salomon had expected this, and he didn't seem surprised. "I didn't expect that people from the Mage's Priory came first," Bader said. "However, those battles were not prepared for you, and it is understandable for you to come here. You are here to celebrate the Creator. Are you awake?" "Bader, do you think that Jubileus is allowed to revive on the earth controlled by the Supreme Mage?" Salomon hugged Salisa tightly, trying his best not to let the struggling little person get close to the dangerous person. Even the Supreme Mage can't compete with the Creator. Baldur slowly stood up from the chair, and the huge rune disc that shimmered slowly rotated behind him, illuminating Baldur's body, but the front is shrouded in shadows. Following those who live under the light, they cannot avoid the emptiness and darkness born from the shadows. The closer they are to the light, the stronger the darkness will be. And we will forge a brand new, a world full of order. All chaos, all disorder will be wiped out. Come here, my daughter. There is really nothing to say to fanatics. Salomon looked at Sarasa, who was struggling endlessly in his arms, and after hesitating for a moment, he put her on the ground according to the Supreme Mage's wishes. The little girl picked up the cat and the puppet, and rushed to Baldur. At the same time, Salomon also stopped Phoenix behind him and stopped his action of capturing Salisa. You took good care of my daughter. Baldur picked up Salisa, and he said, Look, the Supreme Mage asked you to send Salisa here. Doesn't it mean that the Supreme Mage also agrees with my actions? A perfect world is what everyone yearns for, even the Supreme Mage is no exception. Who knows? Salomon was very nervous, not only because he was worried that Baldur would hurt Sarasa, but also because he was worried about whether the Supreme Mage's backhand would be effective. Please wait patiently, my guest, a seat has been prepared for you here, please watch this world being recast. I would also like to thank the Mage Priory for covering Sun Island, which saved me a lot trouble. Baldur lowered his head, hugged Sarasa, and said, You will be a spectator, and your identity is also destined to become a member of the new world. Please. Salomon sat on the chair in the room and quietly pulled out a piece of parchment from the scroll case. The next step is to wait for the Supreme Mage's plan to take effect, and his magic pet is also in Salisa's arms. In case something unexpected happens, he can still cast spells and use the magic pet to transfer spells to rescue Salisa. End of this chapter. Chapter 75 Father and Father. Salomon didn't fail to notice the vast starry sky above Barda's room. He also saw the vast space emitting warm light, and the huge sleeping creature that just revealed its human-faced headdress like ivory, and the almost infinite space. Endless angels. Among these angels, there are many big guys like Ziyuand, but now it seems that they are smaller than ants. Even under the effect of magic, Salomon was far away from the creature, but he still felt an indescribable sense of oppression, which was the unavoidable fear of being a human being against a giant. Even Phoenix, who was staying beside him, was inevitably stiff. And the golden red down on his neck stood up, which made him look fatter. Lumen Sage followed Salomon's eyes and looked at the strange space on the ceiling. Ah, this is the most important research achievement of the Yizaea group, the sage Badr said in a proud tone, and he stretched out a hand, as if showing off, the artificial gods connected to the heavens. The entire room has also been alienated. It is because of this that we can get a glimpse of the true face of the Creator. It is indeed an excellent magic. Salomon exhaled a long breath, and he felt that the current situation was even more difficult. The photos taken by Luca before, those blood-red coffins that were drawn from the blood of the witch, probably provided energy for the huge space in front of them. Salomon really couldn't figure out why the Supreme Sorcerer asked him to carry out this mission. The situation in front of him had already shown that the sage Baldur was well prepared. Under such a crisis, shouldn't the Sorcerer Priory first did everyone rush over to kill the sage? The Eye of Agamotto, there is only this answer. The Supreme Mage must have seen some kind of possibility of Lumen Sage's failure, and this possibility must have the participation of Salomon. Otherwise, in the face of such a serious situation, no one would let a fledgling spellcaster participate. But Salomon didn't dare to relax. He took out the potion sent by Baron Modu and drank it in one gulp. Immediately, he felt that his fatigue had disappeared a little, but it was not enough. I'm really exhausted, Mr. Badr. Salomon said, please allow me to take a nap, so that I can meet the finale in the best state. It doesn't matter. Badr sat on the high-backed chair with Salisa in his arms. He didn't know whether it was because of confidence or pride. He seemed to be indifferent to everything Salomon did. He even allowed the spirit. The grey-like short hair was in Teresa's arms. Salomon glanced at Phoenix. The big golden red bird bowed slightly, expressing that it would try its best to protect Salomon's safety. The mystic once again glanced at Baldur, who was expressionless, and Teresa, who was in his arms. Then he relaxed his body, leaned against the soft back of the chair, closed his eyes, and quickly fell into a deep sleep. A short rest is extremely important for a spellcaster like Salomon, who casts spells by signing a contract with another world. Only after recovering can he have enough mental strength to cast spells, and the potion given by the Supreme Mage is even more important. It can maximize the effect of this short break. After an unknown amount of time, Phoenix's voice sounded in Salomon's heart again, and a person walked into the portal of the spherical room. Bayonetta walked in through the portal with a solemn expression, and Salomon thought that Luca, who had given up in the face of danger, followed closely behind. Bayonetta was in a very bad mood. She won with difficulty under the siege of several Cu and Joan of Arc. At the same time, she also retrieved part of the past 500 years ago memory from Joan of Arc. In fact, Joan of Arc was her childhood playmate. Before the Witch of Ambara was destroyed, Bunetta's only friend and opponent, who was the son of Taboo and feared by everyone, had the same competitive personality. Joan of Arc was aggressive and was about to become the leader of the witch clan at that time. And when the Ambara witch fell into desperation because of witch hunting, it was Joan who sealed Bunetta. What Bunetta thought of before, the scene of Joan stabbing her chest with a rapier is the scene of Joan sealing her up. As the leader, Joan of Arc will never allow the treasure of the witch clan to fall into the hands of others, especially the sage clan who intend to break the balance. Joan of Arc used the unique magic of the witch family. She temporarily sealed Bunetta in a ruby, which is the ruby on the pocket watch on Bunetta's chest today. The ruby is the witness of the friendship between the two. Then Joan broke through the siege with the ruby, sealed Bunetta in the coffin, sank into the lake and hid it until Luca's father broke the seal 20 years ago, and then let Bunetta see the light of day again. In addition, Bayonetta also recalled the origin of that lipstick. She remembered that she was kneeling and crying in front of a dying woman. The surrounding area was engulfed in a sea of flames, and the sky was full of angels. The angel floating in the forefront was the angel of perseverance in the four elements. This also explains Bunetta's subconscious hatred for the angel of perseverance, and why she feels better after killing it. Bunetta remembered the identity of the dying woman, that was her mother, and her mother gave the lipstick to Bunetta and told her to save someone. In order to protect you who lost your will to fight with the death of your mother, and to protect the left eye, I have no choice. Joan of Arc, who was defeated by Bunetta, said, it was so innocent at that time. I remember, Bayonetta said, you were unique to me a long time ago. That boring doll-like woman is my friend. Joan of Arc said with a light smile. The day 500 years ago, why did you choose me as your opponent? Bayonetta still had countless questions to answer. I was hated by everyone. In order to become the strongest witch, one has to choose the strongest opponent, that's all. Even lying on the ground, Joan of Arc was unwilling to express her feelings. Her personality was exactly the same as that of Bayonetta. She said, never run away from the sage Baldur, and settle the grievances 500 years ago. This is your destiny. Fight, then come back victorious, and open a new path. Don't be afraid of your destiny, hold your head high, Teresa. Hold your head high, and open your eyes. Behind every fact, there is another truth. Jeanne Bunetta was greatly puzzled by his words. Even if Joan was in a trance, it was unlikely that she would recognize her as Teresa. Bunetta became suspicious of Salisa's origin. Originally, she only thought that Salisa was the child of the sage Badr, but now this identity has a question mark. Behind every fact, there is another truth. Why did Joan, who was once a companion, help the sage? What is the identity of Teresa? A heavy fog weighed on Bayonetta's heart. She raised her head and glanced at the top of the Isabel building. Perhaps, as Joan of Arc said, all the answers are there. Joan of Arc, who was seriously injured, sat up suddenly, and fired at Bunetta with the last of her strength. Startled, Bunetta quickly backed away, and Joan of Arc was submerged in the golden thunder that fell from the sky. Endless remorse and pain intertwined in Bunetta's heart. She finally recovered her memory and companions, but lost them again in an instant. After that, she met Luca, who was desperately climbing the stairs. After picking up her mood, Bunetta and Luca came to the top floor of the Isabel building, walked through the spiritual path cast by light, and came to this spherical room. Mummy! Mummy is here! Teresa, who was in Badr's arms, yelled and turned her head. She stretched out her chubby hands towards Bunetta and shouted in a childish voice, Mommy! You are finally here, my dear Teresa! Badr said, my dear, why do you have a sad face? When you were a child, your smile was warmer than the Sunday. Hey! The little girl looked at Badr with a puzzled face, but she quickly put the matter behind her and showed a sweet smile to everyone in the room. Immediately afterwards, she yawned cutely and slowly fell asleep. Bayonetta glanced at Salomon, who had just stood up from his seat. Obviously, she was questioning the mystic with her eyes, why the little girl was in the hands of Baldur. But Salomon didn't answer, but nervously looked at Teresa in Badr's arms. Bunetta temporarily gave up asking Salomon, because she couldn't guess the intentions of the Magus Priory, so Bunita changed her target. She pushed her glasses and looked at Badr behind the table. She asked, "As far as I know, you are the last Lumen sage?" "Yes, my name is Baldr." The sage said, "But you can call me father. You have lost a lot of memory. The last time we met was 500 years ago. If you hadn't lost memory, this reunion will be even more exciting." "Where did that girl come from?" Bayonetta asked. "It's a long story." Badr stood up holding Salisa, and he slowly walked towards the astrologer placed beside the table. He said, "We Lumen sages and you Ambara witches are supposed to be observers of history, and they all observe the world with their own eyes. All this is for the sake of this universe and to maintain its existence. But 500 years ago, you were expelled from this race, even if you were the left eye of the world." Badr walked towards the decorative potted plant on the table, and folded the unopened flower branches in his hands. Under the effect of magic, the originally budding flowers slowly bloomed. He inserted the slender branch between Teresa's thick hair. He said, "At this very moment when we are about to successfully resurrect Jubilus, the Creator, there is only one way to restore your memory and open your observer eye. Your pure eye must experience the history it cannot see. You the battle, your struggle, everything you experienced in Vigrid will help you recover your memory, all for the sake of the left eye. I'm fed up with your philosophical nonsense." Bayonetta raised her pistol impatiently and pointed it at Badr. "I'll ask you one last time. Where did this girl come from?" "Your question has already been answered." Badr replied with a chuckle, "All this is for the awakening of the left eye. To awaken the left eye, you must re-examine yourself. You are really hopeless." Bayonetta's voice was full of anger, which was the most intense emotion she had ever shown in front of others. "Ah, salvation! Such a mysterious word." Badr said his lines like a stage actor, "I marked the way to salvation with light. However, no matter how bright the light is, the dark side of the human heart but it is still deep. Light, darkness and the chaos between the two. To create a new world, these three separated worlds must be merged together. For this reason, Easter was held 500 years ago. Stirring people's fears and causing witch hunts. Even though they all believed that Jubilus, the Creator, would return, the left eye was still far away. Since then, I have worked hard to build Vigrid, and now, finally, it has paid off. That's right, Jubilus will be resurrected, and we will become the eyes of the world." Baldr's voice kept rising, but Salisa in his arms was never awakened. "A new world will born. I absolutely can't call the culprit who created this nightmare father." Bayonetta said disdainfully. She covered her emotions in her heart again, and once again showed her usual frivolous attitude. "Nice speech, big man." Luca, who watched the play for a long time, said, "Is it a little too much, big boss of Yizai? Redemption, light, you have implemented this corporate philosophy a little too thoroughly. It's gone, isn't it?" Salomon squinted at the guy. "Sure enough, he was not wrong about the person, this person just likes to kill." "But it's bullshit if you say it," said Luca. "History is full of people like you who committed genocide, or should I say, notorious butchers." The identity of Luca recognized by Badr. "In fact, as an ordinary person, Luca is very brave to go this far. There is some truth to the saying that a tiger father has no sons because Luca's father is an employee of Baldr, although he does not agree with Baldr. Idea, but Badr didn't care what Luca's father investigated. But when bad rumors start to spread, I have to stop them." The sage said nonchalantly, "But in order to thank him for finding the bottom of the lake where my long-lost Sarasa was hiding, I fulfilled his final wishes, and accepts his permanent resignation." "You bastard!" Luca yelled, rushing up. But within a few steps, his limbs were held up by invisible objects, just like what happened to his father 20 years ago. "I don't need you anymore. However, to show my respect," Baldr said, "I will allow you to die in the same way as your father." End of this chapter. Chapter 76. Interfere with the past. "I can only express regret," Badr said calmly, and no one knew what he was expressing regret for. Is it for Luca who is about to die, or his father who has been dead for 20 years? Although the flustered Luca couldn't see what was holding his limbs, Bunita and Salomon could see clearly that they were four friendly angels like miscellaneous fish. Bayonetta fired 4 shots in a row, and each bullet pierced the angel's head extremely neatly. The reporter fell down, but Badr seemed to take his promise very seriously. He waved his hand again, and a golden electric current restrained Luca, intending to throw him out of the window. Bayonetta rushed up, but couldn't catch up with Luca's speed. The reporter smashed several pillars and a piece of stained glass, and flew out of the spherical room with a terrifying scream. Salomon didn't look back, but the pinch of down in his hand had disappeared, and Phoenix quickly flew out of the broken window. If Luca didn't die, then he would have to work for Salomon to pay off the debt. Salomon likes the Overlord clause the most, but only if he is party A. The reason why Salomon was unwilling to take his attention away from Baldur was not only because Teresa was in his arms, but also because the tricks Baldur showed before gave Salomon a very familiar feeling. A feeling of there are many ways to make a flower branch that has not yet bloomed bloom. Whether it is to guide positive energy or the elements of nature can do this. Baldur, who has the power of an angel, is naturally a master of using positive energy spells, but right there on a small flower branch, Salomon didn't feel positive energy, but something else, the power of time. Salomon played with the Eye of Agamotto several times, and the power of the time gem was no stranger to him, but at that time, Baldur actually used the power of time. This is very unreasonable. It's not that the power of time can only be possessed by the time gem, but the time gem can only affect the time of all objects, controlling the increase and decrease of entropy. If a sage with angel power can control time, then the witches who have always been corresponding to it should be able to. Even if the scope is narrowed to the eye of the world, Bunita has never shown the ability to control time. The witch time commonly used by Bunita is only to improve the senses and lengthen the subject's perception of time, and it cannot be called controlling time. Now Salomon finally knew why the Supreme Mage was so cautious about Baldur. Every spellcaster who can play with time is annoying, and there are almost no spells that Salomon can cast that can interfere with time. Bayonetta felt a little relieved when she saw Phoenix flying out with her. She turned around solemnly, stood on the steps covered with red wool, and looked at her nominal father. Sarasa, your journey ends here. Badr said, but his tone was still indifferent. If fate cannot be realized as soon as possible, this tragedy will continue to repeat. Speaking of tragedy, I think you have seen Joan? Although she sealed you up and kept you away from these troubles, she played a big role after falling into our hands. Although she was very disobedient at the beginning, which made her need some spiritual transformation. But as I expected, her tragic ending is the opportunity to lead you to me. Badr seems to want enraged Bunita. He kept poking the wound in Bunita's heart, and told her all the truth about Joan of Arc's enmity with Bunita. Badr said, the time to awaken the left eye will soon come. Fear not, my dear Teresa. I don't understand. She said, why did I summon me here when I was a child, and why did I do such a troublesome thing? You have lost all your memories. In order to awaken you as the left eye, you must retrieve your previous strength and experience, as well as your love. Badr carried the little girl and walked towards Bayonetta, without looking at Salomon standing aside. Naturally, the mystic would not be angry about this kind of thing. He was thinking about a more difficult problem. He originally thought that Salisa was Bunita's half-sister, but after discovering the power of time, Salisa's identity was shrouded in a layer of grey mist. But Badr has never concealed his address to Bayonetta, whether it is called Salisa or Bayonetta, they all use the same name. Because of what Joan of Arc said to Bayonetta, and what she called Bayonetta, Bayonetta realized the identity of the little girl first. Sarasa is Bayonetta, and Bunita is Sarasa. This little girl was brought back from 500 years ago by Lumen Sage Baldur through time magic. But Salomon couldn't figure out what Baldur's purpose was, because interfering with the past could not change the present, it could only extend a parallel world. And the existence of the parallel world proved that time does not always go forward. Just like the different branches extending from the trunk, the variables produced by interfering with the past are equivalent to a bright green sprout on this branch. Only when the new sprout grows into a new branch and the changed variables have an impact, it was found that the branches of the same origin grew different flowers. Salomon suddenly realized another possibility, that is, the parallel worlds extended from a certain world would interfere with each other, and what Badr did was equivalent to transplanting a tree bud at the trunk, although this was not his purpose, but a means to interfere with the current Bunita. This conjecture made his heart pound. It was a huge subject, and the curiosity in his soul even tickled his skull, as if his brain had grown slender tentacles, stroking his brain incessantly. The grey matter made Salomon want to jump forward immediately and have an academic discussion with Lumen Sage Badr. If it is said that the Supreme Mage follows the eternal incarnation of the Holy Spirit, and uses immortality to pursue the ultimate in the way of magic, then Baldur brought the childhood Bunita back to the present, and let Salomon see another way to explore the magic way forever without becoming a lich. But in the room now, apart from Salomon, the other two are not in the mood to discuss these things. Soon, Salomon also refocused on Badr, and prepared a 100% weapon that can temporarily subdue the sage. Magic, only the most suitable magic, not the most powerful magic. Low-level spells can also play miraculous effects. Bunita's emotions were successfully ignited by Lumen Sage Baldur, who said with great anger, "Not only did you mess up the world, you killed Mommy. How dare you open your mouth and say, love? I didn't kill Rosa. It was the distortion of the world that separated us. It was the angels eager to resurrect the Lord God who killed her. I can't do anything." Putting his hand on his heart, he gradually approached Bunita. "The angels fought with you and drove you to a desperate situation, just to become a sacrifice for your strength improvement, and Joan of Arc is the final polishing. The procedure is to maximize your strength. To achieve this goal, you must awaken your memory. She did a very good job, and you can stand here now as proof." "You're crazy." Bunita pointed the pistol at Badr, ignoring the little girl in the sage's arms, the past self. "I don't think so." Badr whispered in a very magnetic voice, "It's not me who is crazy, but this world. Can you really shoot me? Are you going to shoot your father?" "I dear daughters, Sir, Lay, Sarah. Why not?" Bunita narrowed her eyes, tilted her head slightly, and pulled the trigger mercilessly. At the same time, the spell prepared by Salomon was released. Tasha laughter. End of this chapter. Chapter 77. Tasha laughter technique is a spell from the famous Witch of Periland, who severely imprisoned play lovers, the creator of Devil Chronicles, and the master of the three giants of the abyss, the Dark Master, the two-way plug, the six-finger, and the master of the triple domain. Lover of friend and foe, and mother of the demigod Ihu's Igwyval of Greyhawk world. Baldur and Bunita are natural spellcasters, and the power of angels and demons flows in their blood vessels. The closer they are to this power, the greater the power they will exert. And the attribute that is compatible with magic power is charm, which can be felt from Bunita's unparalleled attractiveness, and even if Baldur covers half of his face, his voice is still fascinating. Therefore, Salomon chose this soul-threatening spell to address the shortcomings of natural spellcasters. Bullets always come faster than chanting spells. When Salomon was still chanting spells, throwing out small cakes and waving feathers, Bunita's bullets had already quickly approached Baldur's head. Immediately afterwards, an invisible force spread out from Baldur as the center, and everything stopped. In this field, except for Baldur, everyone else was still. He easily raised his hand, grabbed the four stalled bullets, and turned the bullets around. Badr's fingers flicked across the air, and everything returned to normal. No one realized what had happened, but Bayonetta still avoided the bullet that was supposed to shoot at Badr by virtue of her excellent reflexes. Bullet. But it was also because of this that Badr caught Bayonetta's opening, and the sage stretched out his free left hand, tightly grabbed Bayonetta's neck, and grabbed her. "That's it, Teresa. Don't be afraid of your fate." Badr's fingers were deeply embedded in Bunita's slender neck like an iron hook. He ignored Bunita's wailing, "Hold your head high, my child, grasp your true potential." "Ha ha 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 ha." Badr burst into a wild laugh, his tense muscles forced him to bow slightly, even though the left half of his face was covered by a golden mask. He could still see the madness he displayed. Suddenly, Salomon appeared between him and Bayonetta with a thin silver mist. The mystic's right hand was holding a dagger, and he swiped at the sage's left hand, which was weakened by the spell, forcing him to let go of Bunita. At the same time, Salomon also stretched out his left hand to the little girl in Baldur's arms. The spell of Lost Step is really too easy to use. This spell is almost a teleportation with a very short lead time. Whether it is escaping, chasing, or even inserting into the battle situation, it is always useful. However, due to time constraints, Salomon was unable to cast any more spells, let alone the time to activate magic props. Without Salomondo saying anything, the chubby grey short-haired cat stretched out its sharp claws and grabbed Baldur's priest robe and climbed up. Its movements were as swift as if the fat didn't exist. Salomon's demon pet scratched Badr's neck fiercely, leaving 4 white marks. The invisible field expanded again. Badr coughed hard a few times, and took a deep breath. All the negative effects of Tasha's laughter technique disappeared. "We'll check. I still admire you, Mystic." He let go of the hand holding Bunita, pushed Salomon hard, and then grabbed the fat grey cat that was about to bite, ruthlessly throwing it to the side. He patted Salomon's hand that was reaching out to the little girl. Although it was troublesome for Badr to maintain this kind of power, his overconfidence made him willing to spend some time talking nonsense when he had the advantage. Even though he knew Salomon couldn't hear it. He said, "You actually deduced the weakness of the sage family after only seeing it for a while. You are worthy of being the disciple of the Supreme Master, and you are worthy of being the son of God. But you are just lucky. Badr suddenly threw a punch. Time flowed normally again. And Salomon only felt that he was attacked twice in an instant, once in his left hand and once in his chest. Before he could react, the huge force made him step back involuntarily, bumping into the soft and warm body behind him, flying backwards with Bunita, bumping into the slowly rotating giant rune disc. Cough. Cough. Vomit. Such an attack almost made Salomon breathless, and Bayonetta hadn't recovered from the pain. When Salomon pulled Bunita to stand up, he saw Badr holding up the young Bunita, and the little girl floated up, with blue magic power blooming all over her body. Teresa, we are one, my child. Baldur looked at the little girl in front of him intoxicated, and the little girl floating in the air crashed into Baldur's chest and disappeared. Immediately afterwards, a huge amount of blue magic power appeared out of thin air and rushed towards Baldur like a tide. This magical power set off a strong wind in the spherical room with Baldur as the center, and all the tapestries, tables, and chairs were covered by this force. Pushing outwards, colliding with each other, breaking apart, and making a sound. The sage cried out in pain, but there was some joy in his voice. But Salomon and Bayonetta had no time to comment on this extremely perverted scene. They could only hide behind the seraphim shield propped up by Salomon and try their best to fight against this majestic force. But Salomon couldn't hold it for too long at all. The seraphim shield he propped up was pulled in the magic storm, and countless dazzling sparks were like paint poured into the turbulent water, drawing an arc along the airflow, get blown into the air. Fortunately, this magical storm stopped suddenly when Salomon was about to be unable to sustain it, but worse things followed. After this magical power converged on Badr, it exploded with a stronger force, and the seraphim shield exploded into sparks. The huge impact even blew up the spherical room floating in the air into pieces, and even spread to the spire of the Isabel building was smashed, and huge concrete stones and steel bars fell from the sky. Bunita hugged Salomon tightly, she used her magic power as the last barrier, and fell down with the mystic. Badr was floating in the air, and the peacock feathers behind him suddenly bloomed, stretched out like wings, exactly the same as what Bunita saw 500 years ago. There were 10 symmetrical feathers of different lengths on his left and right side's feathers. A total of 5 pairs of wings also symbolize Baldur's identity, and are the human spokesperson of Jubileus. But the difference from 500 years ago is that the blue magic power surged on his body surface, and a small head made of blue magic power protruded from Baldur's chest. The face made of magic power and Sarasa exactly the same, even the glasses and the flower branch in the ear are exactly the same. Boya! You! The gorgeous butterfly wings stretched out from behind the falling Bunita, trying to avoid falling rocks while slowing down, but Salomon, whose mouth and nose were bleeding, made her extremely worried. Salomon waved his hand and coughed up a mouthful of blood. Badr had injured his lung with one punch, and now he still felt a dull pain in his ribs. But it doesn't matter, he can use the positive energy provided by Vizandi to heal himself. You go! Salomon said, remember, lipstick. Kill him. Targets hit by the laughter spell will need to make another check every time they are attacked. So, remember to use this trick to hit the kitchen knife, and don't use this magic on the magic user, or you will cry. End of this chapter. Chapter 78. Across 5 years. The lung injury caused Salomon to cough continuously. Every word of his was accompanied by blood foaming from his lungs, but he was not too worried. Magic could solve this problem. Even if it was too late to prepare the materials for the spell, he would have copied a good scroll could have saved his life too. Bayonetta led him to jump towards a huge falling stone slab. The witch's magic made the stone slab produce virtual gravity, and Salomon and herself stood firmly on the slate. Throw me out! Salomon took out a small bottle of alcohol and poured it into his mouth. Resisting the urge to cough, he swallowed it together with the sticky, sweet, and rusty smell of blood. He felt his throat and my stomach is going to burn. Before the alcohol affected his brain, Salomon chanted the spell and added a spell to himself. This is the result of Salomon's learning of necromancy. The spell creating life allows him to use negative energy to stop the bleeding and facilitate subsequent treatment. This magic can last for an hour, which is enough for Salomon to prepare for treatment. He coughed up the last blood clots, and said to Bayonetta, throw me out, your next battle. As for Salisa, now she can't interfere with you, you can do whatever you want. Bunita saw that Salomon had returned to normal, and her tone became normal again. She said, Big sister will take care of everything, don't worry little brother, you have done enough. Bunita glanced at the figure flying quickly below, picked up the collar of Salomon's holy relic, and kissed the mystic's face. After finishing speaking, she swung the mystic mage horizontally for half a circle and threw it out. I saw a golden red figure rushing across the air, grabbing Salomon and flying towards a safe place. It was Phoenix, and it flew towards here immediately after bringing Luca back to a safe place. Catch Salomon being thrown out. The mystic felt that his collar was hooked by a sharp object, and when he heard the sound of flapping wings and the continuous falling of golden light spots, he knew who was holding him. Salomon heaved a sigh of relief, threw away the feather in his hand. The leftover material of Tasha's laughter technique can also be used as a material for feather fall technique, gave up casting the spell, and let Phoenix take him away from this constant dangerous place of falling stones. He watched the gorgeous black and purple butterfly wings extending from Bunita's back, stepping on the falling stones and jumping up step by step. After getting used to that force, Bader flapped 5 pairs of wings and rushed towards Bayonetta below. Seeing that the collision was about to happen, Salomon hurriedly told Phoenix to speed up a little and find a safe place nearby. Salomon said, "Don't take me too far, I must ensure that the final winner is our side." "My lord, but you are still injured." Phoenix's voice was accompanied by a sweet note, which was still clearly audible even in the continuous explosions. As the middle-ranking marquis of the 72-pillar demon god, Phoenix was extremely kind. Like a demon, it is even kinder than most humans. In other words, it is not a demon itself, but fell into the abyss because of certain things. Phoenix is very fond of Salomon, not only because it regards Salomon as Solomon, but also because it has seen Salomon coaxing children, and it is better to be with a cute little guy than to stay in the universe. Much better where disorder is at its most chaotic. While it took Salomon to the roof of a nearby building, it also asked the mystic about Salisa's current situation. "Where is that child? Why didn't I see her?" "Eat it," said Salomon. "That child was Bunita in the past, and Baldra absorbed her power. Now, Salisa is gone." Phoenix fell silent and stopped talking. This fact hit him hard, but Salomon was not in the mood to comfort him now. Immediately afterwards, a swirling spark appeared in front of them, and a portal suddenly opened, and Phoenix immediately led Salomon into it. It is a mirrored dimension where all the buildings are toppled over and each one is folded to form a wide platform. Could it be Modu again? Salomon thought, then he is really caring, always showing up at the most suitable time. However, the person waiting here was not senior brother Modu, but the Supreme Master. Salomon saw that the Supreme Master was carrying Kamataja's supreme magic weapon, the Eye of Agamotto, on his chest. "Teacher." Phoenix landed in front of the Supreme Mage with Salomon. "Why are you here?" "Because I saw the possibility of killing Jubilus completely, I am needed here," the Venerable said, stretching out his finger, and turning it lightly above the Eye of Agamotto. The green radiance of the time gem came from the Eye of Agamotto bloomed, and 2 circular green magic halos surrounded the wrists of the Supreme Mage. His Holiness said, "To be precise, killing Jubilus requires me to push." "Did you also see the possibility of Salisa being absorbed by Baldr?" Salomon asked. "I think you should know the origin of Salisa. When the power of the Eye of the World is gathered, you can have part of the power of the original Chaos Asir. Although I don't know where this demon god came from, he does have the power to travel through time. After Baldr got the Eye of the World, although it is not enough to compete with the Eye of Agamotto, but as long as you take the time to write a big magic, it is easy to bring the childhood Sarasa back to the present." The Venerable replied, "The step of Baldr absorbing Salisa's power, is the only way to finish killing Jubilus." Then, Salomon hesitated to speak, but the Venerable saw his thoughts. "Don't worry, Salomon." The Venerable said, "There are many possibilities in the future, and you have pushed the ending to the best one. You have given enough care to Salisa, and Bayonetta has also let you. Salisa has become strong. The next thing I have to do is to write an epitaph for this god." The Supreme Mage easily took over the mirror dimension cast by all the spellcasters of the Mage Priory. With a wave of her hand, the building in front of her began to fold and rotate, bringing a woman lying on the ground in front of the Supreme Mage. This person was Joan of Arc, who was already seriously injured and fell into the brink of death after being hit by Baldr's spell. The Venerable pointed his palm at her, and the green ring magic on his arm slowly rotated. As the Venerable's palm rotated, Salomon saw that the scorched black on Joan's body gradually disappeared, and the trauma gradually healed, leaving nothing on the skin. No trace. As if she had never been injured. Immediately afterwards, the Venerable turned his palm in the opposite direction, and the trauma reappeared, but the Venerable's other hand was casting other spells. Under the combined action of the Time Gem and Wysandy's series of magic, the wounds that reappeared on Joan's body were gradually healed. The time stone is just there to keep Joan from dying during the healing process. But she was also controlled by Bader with magic. The battle between her and Bayonetta not only allowed Bayonetta to regain her memory, but also allowed Joan to untie Baldur's shackles. In order for her to complete the final step, the Venerable could not use the time gem to return Joan's state to before the battle, but could only heal her little by little. Through the mirror dimension, Salomon watched the battle of Bunita and Baldur at close range. Badr floated in the air, his white feathers spread open, and he blew on a soft long feather in his hand, and then an extremely long golden lightsaber made of positive energy appeared in his hand. Badr flapped his wings and flew forward at an extremely fast speed. The lightsaber without a trace of weight easily cut through the falling rocks with high temperature, and fiercely waved this terrible weapon at Bunita. Bunita summoned Gamara, but this giant beast living in the demon forest could not crush Baldur's golden shield, and the sage easily twisted the demon's neck. The witch summoned other demons, such as the giant centipede in the river Styx. This centipede wrapped in hair wrapped around Baldur like a hunting python. After crushing Baldur's shield with difficulty, he was killed. Badr's sudden burst of strength tore into several pieces. This battle was extremely fierce, and the speed of Badr and Bunita was also exaggerated. In the eyes of ordinary people, they could only see a phantom, as well as splashing bullets and brilliant lights flickering around. If it wasn't for Salomon being safely in the mirror dimension now, he might be injured because of his lack of dodge, and it would not be as simple as a lung injury by then. Bayoneta's fighting skills are extremely high, she can always dodge Baldur's attack, and then use her various weapons to fight back. Salomon even saw a lightsaber from Star Wars, it must have been Rodin's work, and he's a big movie buff. May Jabalus, the creator, protect you. Suddenly, Badr, who was hit, screamed. He opened his hands and fell to the ground with a wail. Bayonetta also jumped down, and before Baldur fell to the ground, she reached out and inserted her hand into Baldur's chest, and hugged the little girl out of it. It's over. Salomon looked suspiciously at the Supreme Mage who was treating Joan of Arc. Even though the spell was being cast, the Venerable still found time to talk to Salomon, and the Venerable motioned Salomon to look at Bayonetta. It's not that simple, said His Holiness. This matter is not over yet. The witch hugged the little girl and walked towards the huge rune disc that fell to the ground. Even though the disc fell hard from the top to the ground, it was still not damaged. When Bunita approached with the little girl in her arms, both the rune disc and the pocket watch on Bunita's chest began to glow brightly. This is the resonance of power. On this rune disc is the great magic written by Baldur. He used this magic to bring Bunita 500 years ago to the present. Bayonetta instinctively took off the pocket watch on her chest and pointed it at the rune disc. A dazzling light bloomed from the stained glass in the center of the rune disc. Bayuni saw a cold room made of stone, the exquisite carvings on the stone wall made her very familiar, and there was a large iron bed in the corner of the room, covered with thick white bedding. The witch walked over to the little girl in her arms and put her on the bed. Badr's magic made the little girl extremely sleepy, but she managed to open her eyes, looked at Bunita beside the bed, and said in a trance, "Mummy, Daddy. Don't be afraid, child." Bayonetta's voice was extremely gentle. "The nightmare is over. It's all just a dream. You are a strong little girl. There is nothing you can't overcome." "Mummy?" the little girl asked in a haze, "have you found it? The thing you were looking for?" "Yes, I found it," Bayonetta said, "so you don't have to worry, and you can take good care of your treasure. Remember this pocket watch, and you can't leave it for a moment. In the future, I will become a woman like Mommy." The little girl fell into a deep sleep after finishing speaking. "Sweet dreams, child." Bunita softly hummed the familiar song, a lullaby her mother Rosa once sang to her, and every sleepless night she would go to visit Rosa imprisoned. And every time, her mother would sing this lullaby to her, and this gentle singing accompanied Bayonetta through her entire childhood. Salomon only saw a flash of bright light, and the little girl in Bunita's arms disappeared. The witch covered her forehead, as if she was thinking about something. The rune disc that had withstood the high-altitude fall was completely destroyed, and the stained glass was blown to pieces. If he guessed correctly, Bayonetta should have used this rune disc to send the little girl back 500 years ago. "Shouldn't it end here?" Salomon asked. "This ending seems perfect." The Supreme Master had just finished treating Joan of Arc. After sending Joan of Arc out of the mirror dimension, His Holiness pointed to Baldur lying beside him. "Why do you think I'm healing Joan?" said the Supreme Sorcerer, "because she was the one who did the last step, and the lipstick hasn't been used yet. Besides, time is just beginning to show itself." Following the words of the Supreme Mage, Bunita screamed in pain, and red magic power suddenly burst out from her body. Just like the power released by Baldr's right eye, the magic storm pushed away everything around. This is a sign of Bunita's awakening of the power of the left eye, and the power shown by these red magic powers is even more exaggerated than Baldr's right eye. After sending Salisa back to 500 years ago, because Bunita and Salomon's love for her filled the vacancy in her heart, and because of Bunita's warning, Salisa hid the pocket watch next to her body in the chest, blocking the sword stabbed by Joan. It is completely different from this world. History is developing, and a parallel world is born. Sarasa in that world grew up to be an independent and strong witch, and did not lose her fighting spirit because of her mother's death during the witch hunt, thus avoiding the fact that she was sealed by Joan of Arc. Perhaps because of the interference between the parallel worlds, two completely different memories of 500 years flooded into Bayoneta's mind instantly. Under the strong mental fluctuation, she passed out. And the left eye also disappeared. Awakened smoothly. Next you will learn how to use the Eye of Agamotto. The Supreme Mage looked at the confused Salomon and said, if you want to know what happened in the other world, you must use the Eye of Agamotto to look at those possibilities, because each one is a parallel world that could be born. There are many complex issues involved, including the regression of time flow, which you have not learned. When will it start? Salomon asked. Wait until this matter is over, said the Supreme Sorcerer, but now you should pay attention to someone else. That's all done. At some point, Badr, who was lying on the ground, suddenly stood up, with the blue magic of the right eye wrapped around his body. The right eye observes the light, and the left eye observes the darkness, observing the world with both eyes. In my plan, there is no woman named Bionta, but you as a child, Teresa. Badr said in an extremely complacent tone, she looks at this with pure eyes. The world, she can create a new history, and her power can awaken the left eye. All this is my plan, Teresa, you did a good job. End of this chapter. Chapter 79 The Final Battle Between Demons and Gods. Bayonetta fell into a coma due to the chaotic memory of 500 years, but all this seemed to be in the plan of the sage Baldr. He stretched out his hand and hugged the witch who was still unconsciously releasing the power of the left eye. Since the outermost layer of concrete of the building crumbled and fell, the center part of the building was revealed. It was a very obvious rocket structure. The whole body was made of metal, perhaps because of the long history of construction. There are also clearly visible rivets at those metal connections. Under the influence of magic, this rocket manufactured by the Isabel Group possesses technologies far superior to those of other countries. It is much larger than any other country's rockets in terms of carrying capacity and size. How tall is the Isabel building? How high the rocket is? At the top of this rocket is a huge stone group that does not conform to hydrodynamics at all. Anyone with a bit of common sense would not put this kind of thing on the rocket. The center of this group is the statue of the creator Jubileus, surrounded by countless beautiful angels, overlooking the world from the clouds. Let's get started, Teresa. Bader hugged Bayonetta and walked up to the stone statue on the top floor of the Isabel building. The resurrection ceremony of Jubileus, the creator, is about to be completed. Baldr rose to the highest point, his back was facing the stone statue, and he was completely insane, and he was still instilling his thoughts into the unconscious Bunita. Sire, we are the eyes that observe the world, we are the eyes that witness the new world, the new reality, for which we will dedicate ourselves forever. Baldr and Bunita burst into dazzling light, and the sage and the witch floated into the forehead of the statue of Jubileus, the creator. Immediately afterwards, the statue opened its eyes, the right eye was blue, and the left eye was red. Badr and Bunita were located in the right and left eyes respectively. The power of the Eye of the World activated the sleeping Jubileus. May the creator Jubileus protect all creations. The goddess statue opened its mouth, but the voice was Baldr's. This statue is now under the control of Baldr, which has always been Baldr's long-cherished wish, to become the creator of the new world together with his daughter. Now, this long-cherished wish that has lasted for 500 years is about to come true. The air defense sirens rang throughout the island, and countless people raised their heads and set their sights on the center of Sun Island, the tallest and most eye-catching building. But different people have different views on this scene. Numerous Ragnar believers believe that this is a precursor to the resurrection of the creator, Jubileus. They prayed joyfully, hoping that Jubileus would take care of them after his resurrection. But some people think that this is not a good thing, such as Luca, who was brought to the edge of Sun Island by Phoenix, and Salomon, who is staying in the mirror dimension. You have done enough. The Supreme Mage looked at the frowning Salomon and said, you have helped Salisa become strong, and made her awaken the power of the left eye. But what's the use of this? Salomon asked, the awakened left eye seems to be expected by Baldur. What Badr doesn't know is that I have seen many possibilities. He believes that Jubilee's power can surpass the eye of Agamotto. His Holiness said, but the eye of the world cannot be as powerful as Agamotto. There are many possibilities, and there are many possibilities, including the one that can kill Jubilee. Salomon was a little puzzled. He said, that includes the current situation. This is also one of the possibilities. The Supreme Mage pointed to Joan of Arc, who was lying outside the mirror dimension and was slowly waking up. It will depend on her next. Bright flames and smoke that covered the sky spewed out from the ground floor of the building, passing through the buildings and streets like a raging wave until it spread to the sea. A huge amount of sound and heat swept across the entire island, and the huge vibration even shattered the concrete, causing the building next to the Isabel building to completely collapse. As the rocket rose slowly, countless angels also surrounded the rocket, flapping their wings and rising into the sky together. Salomon saw that the rocket suddenly extended a section after liftoff, and a disc made of metal with sun-like radiation patterns opened at the tail. The loud noise also made Joan completely awake. She didn't even know that she had entered the mirror dimension, because the Supreme Mage made her memory stay after the injury. But Joan didn't have time to question the fact that she was not injured, because she had already felt the power of the stone statue at the top of the rocket. That power was the left eye and right eye she was very familiar with. She knew that the current there is no room for delay. The left eye of the witch clan must not fall into the hands of others. This is Joan's belief and pride as the leader of the witch clan. So she didn't hesitate after waking up, and immediately jumped off the tall building. After landing smoothly, she grabbed a motorcycle on the side of the road, twisted the accelerator, and galloped along the surface of the undamaged building. Joan jumped up from the air with the motorcycle, and she ruthlessly ran over the angel floating in the air as a road. With extremely precise control and the power of the motorcycle engine, Joan drove the motorcycle all the way and finally stopped on the shell of the rocket. The angels gathered around immediately swarmed after seeing Joan of Arc. But they dared not attack her with all their strength, because they were afraid of damaging this fragile technological creation and making Jubilee's resurrection fall short. The Supreme Mage waved his finger, and a portal suddenly opened in front of the rocket. Behind the portal was the boundless starry sky. The rapidly rising rocket could not change its direction at all, and could only pass through the portal. The Venerable continued to cast spells, and this was the first time Salomon had witnessed the power of the Supreme Master. The Supreme Mage opened her hands, and the orange-red flame jumped between her palms. Countless tall buildings stretched and folded under her feet, and the platform surrounding her and Salomon rose rapidly. As the platform rose higher and higher, the horizon began to show a curvature, and all the tall buildings gradually became smaller, and the setting sun in the west gradually rose. Salomon saw that the boundary line between light and dark on the ground extended toward the north and south. The bright ground in the distance is wrapped in a layer of blue shimmer. When the platform was still again, Salomon realized that the sky above him was no longer thin clouds, but a deep starry sky. Immediately afterwards, the Supreme Mage opened his hands, and the boundary of the mirror dimension like shattered glass expanded rapidly around her. Salomon looked down from a high altitude and watched the mirror dimension spread across the land, extending from Sun Island to the surrounding sea. This expansion seemed endless, and Salomon saw that the boundary even crossed the distant horizon until it enveloped the entire earth. At the same time, the defense systems of the three supreme sanctuaries were activated immediately, and sparks invisible to ordinary people flickered on the surface of the ground, extending into lines, and centered on New York, London, and Hong Kong. A huge shield that slowly rotated on three sides was built. Now, all satellite signals are lost on Earth, and all contact with satellites is cut off by the mirror dimension. Above the Earth, the huge rocket has been separated from all technological creations, and the root-like stone pillars below the statue are pulled by gravity and fall to the ground like meteorites. Countless angels turned into golden light spots, with unparalleled fanaticism, and they threw themselves into the body of the Creator Jubileus, including a large number of extremely powerful four-element angels. For the recovery of the gods, they are willing to be the fuel that kindles the old world. Salomon stared dumbfounded at the scene in front of him. Jubileus, the Creator, curled up like a baby sleeping in the womb. With the power of the eye of the world and the angel who became the firewood, all burdens were abandoned. The dull stone-like sculpture turned into flesh. With the recovery of Jubileus, the gushing force crushed the charged high-energy particles through the atmosphere, rubbed against the magnetic field, and set off a golden aurora on half of the Earth. If it weren't for the two layers of defense, the mirror dimension cast by the Supreme Mage and the planetary defense system of Karmataj, under the bombardment of such a powerful force, the earthquake and tsunami would affect half of the earth. This is unimaginably powerful, and it's no wonder that Bader doesn't care about the existence of the Supreme Mage at all, because such power cannot be blocked by one person. He awoke from a curled-up state and stretched out his body. Jubilus has an extremely perfect body proportion, his skin is as white and flawless as marble, his body and limbs have complicated red lines, and there are gold arm rings and leg rings on his hands and legs. The hair was divided into 6 strands, and each strand of long hair was inlaid with various jewels. The front and back of the long hair ends were also inlaid with huge diamond-shaped rubies. Huge golden runes were also behind him like wings opening up. It emits a light that is not inferior to the sun. The Supreme Master signaled Salomon to calm down and observe the development of the battle. The powerful physique of the witches allowed Joan to endure the cold and thin oxygen in the sky. She rode a motorcycle and stopped on a floating rock. A triple dark purple magic circle opened up in front of Joan of Arc. A bullet passed through the magic circle and hit Jubilus' left eye. Bunita, who lost her power control due to a coma, fell out of it. Jane! Wake up, Salisa! Joan's voice reached Bunita's ears through magic. Let's understand the grievances of 500 years ago with your own hands. Don't dawdle, wake up, the battle has already begun already. End of this chapter. Chapter 80 The final battle between demons and gods. A violent explosion exploded in Jubilus' left eye, and he wailed in pain while reaching out his left hand to cover his eyes. But the waking Bunita jumped out of the left eye first, and she reweaved a tight black leather jacket with magic power, and landed beside Joan of Arc. Due to the imbalance of power, Jubilus' left eye exploded again, and a huge amount of blood even covered half of Jubilus' body. Stupid! Baldur's voice came out through Jubilus' mouth. You all, look at what you have done. A giant blue sword appeared in Jubilus' left hand, and Baldur controlled him to swing this terrible weapon towards Bayonetta and Joan of Arc. As he chopped the floating stone into pieces, Bayonetta and Joan of Arc jumped up, and the almost zero gravity made them drift towards space continuously. Bunita tried to attack, but the Gamara she summoned again was easily decapitated by Jubilus with this long sword. She said helplessly, it seems that ordinary pets can't help it. My precious daughter, Teresa! Badr yelled, waving his limbs wildly, you actually turned your sword against your father and did such a thing, I will never forgive you. Haven't I already done this? Bayonetta replied with a chuckle, I will continue to do this. This is the power of God. Joan of Arc said, Ceresa, you must complete your mission. Of course, but it has to be us, Bayonetta said. With our secret weapon. Just what I want. Joan replied with a smile. Telok vovim agraa ors taba ord avavago. Emnaol adrapan adnasnrza oxex rockler. While Bunita chanted the spell, she also performed several extremely difficult body movements. Behind her, in a black-purple magic circle, an infinitely extended black hair protruded from it, even far taller than her. The black hair when summoning Gamara came even more. The same is true for Joan of Arc. Her white hair and Bunita's black hair are twisted together, and they pass through a magic circle again. Black and white are intertwined, and they converge into a female demon. This demon is even stronger than Jubilus. Much bigger. She has a towering black bun adorned with 3 rows of white skulls. And a large oval ruby in the center of her forehead that matches her red eyes. This is the Queen of Sheba, a demon summoned by combining the powers of Bunita and Joan of Arc. In other words, she was classified as a demon just because she lived in the abyss. When the female demon was summoned, she glanced in the direction of Salomon, as if her gaze could penetrate the lens-like dimension. She is looking at me, this was Salomon's thought. He was sure that the demon was watching him. Suddenly, he felt like he hated coffee even more. Soon, the demon refocused on Jubilus in front of him. She kissed her fist, swung her arm backwards, and rushed to Jubilus in an instant, and the huge fist penetrated Jubilus' stomach, causing the creator to scream. Immediately afterwards, the demon grabbed Jubilus by the hair, swung her up and threw her towards the sun. Salomon couldn't describe the ensuing battle. He only saw a purple light and a golden light scurrying in space at an extremely fast speed. The aftermath of the battle between the two hit the planetary defense from time to time. System and mirror dimension, from a distance, brilliant sparks are constantly splashing on the surface of the Earth. Demons and gods collide with each other, smashing all the floating asteroids, and these fragments are pulled by gravity and fall towards the Earth. As for those satellites that were unfortunately hit, they all became space junk. Salomon swallowed, but he felt his throat tightened and he couldn't speak. After a long time, he cautiously asked the Supreme Mage, Teacher, that demon. The Supreme Master said with a half smile, that's the Queen of Sheba. But I'm not Solomon. Salomon said aggrievedly, she wouldn't recognize me as him, would she? I've never done that kind of thing, so she wouldn't come to settle accounts with me, would she? Who knows? The Venerable said, anyway, you don't have to worry about debts, and you are not short of this. Salomon cried. Well, not really, he just held the trembling phoenix tightly in depression, and continued to watch the battle between gods and demons. The outcome of the battle was quickly decided. Badr, who was out of balance, could not stand alone. The Queen of Sheba summoned by Bunita and Joan of Arc was far stronger than Jubileus, who only had the power of right eye. In order for the world to become what it should be, there is still time, Teresa. Badr yelled, wake up, my dear daughter. My dear father, are you still thinking about such things? Bayonetta said, Mother tried hard to save your soul. What nonsense are you talking about? Just create a new world and everything will be saved. It's such a boring last word. What's so fun about creating a new world according to my own wishes? I still prefer the current world. Bayonetta chanted a spell, summoning a huge wooden horse torture tool, and a black long whip also appeared in the hands of the Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba tied Jubileus' ankles with a long whip and pulled him onto the wooden horse. Jubileus couldn't help howling from the pain caused by the sawtooth. Salomon had already covered his eyes. If he fell into the abyss, the demons would certainly treat him like this, or worse. Let's end him. Joan threw the pistol up and walked through the magic circle. The pistol appeared in the hands of the Queen of Sheba, and it was wrapped around black hair and a skeleton. I will pour all the magic power into it. Bayonetta took out the lipstick from her chest and loaded it into her pistol. The witch aimed the pistol at Jubileus' right eye. Now, accept Mommy's wish. Daughter, it's this boring world that separated Rosa and me, and this world must be changed back to what it was. Badr, with the welts clearly visible in his right eye, shouted, this world must change back. What a silly wish. Mom is waiting for you, she's been waiting a long time, Bayonetta said, pulling the trigger. Goodbye, Dad. This lipstick engraved with the words Balder and Rosa 19.3.1411 with love until the end of time carried the power of Bunita, travelled a long distance, and hit the right eye of Jubileus. In Balder, the powerful magic even penetrated his head, and he saw his former lover in a trance. Rosa. Farewell to the last sage. Queen Sheba's muzzle gathered all of Joan's magic power, and then shot out violently. Accompanied by unparalleled strong light, the violent explosion blasted all the surrounding meteorites into powder. At this time, the sun gradually rose on the other side of the earth. A new day has come, and all demons and gods are far away from the earth again. The Supreme Mage opened the eye of Agamotto again, turned his palm towards the earth, and the satellites that had been damaged in this battle were restored to their original state. The Supreme Mage attaches great importance to the development of human science and technology. Without these satellites, the human aerospace industry and communication the system will start all over again. His Holiness ordered the planetary defense system to close the most powerful protection, and then slowly revoked the mirror dimension covering the whole world, leaving only the platform under her and Salomon's feet. After the Venerable finished all this, she opened the portal again, and pulled Joan of Arc and Bayonetta, who were unconscious due to the powerful impact, back from space. Teacher, I think it's better to kill Jubileus directly if you cover the earth with the mirror dimension. Salomon couldn't help complaining, I always feel that killing Jubileus may save effort. We can't kill him. The Venerable said, only the power of the same root and origin from the chaos god Aesir is the weakness of Jubileus. As for the resurrection. But now, I'm going to send them back. Do you want to go with me? Or do you want to go to the moon for a stroll? But there is no fun there. I just want to go back now and have a good meal. Salomon sighed, and he opened the portal to Bayonetta's apartment in New York. I'll take them back, I still have questions to ask them. About that demon. End of this video. Like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for more novels like this.